remain, yeah, understand. When you got nothing to lose, then you got something to prove. I can't speak softly for you, but I got suspicion. With you, too many tribulations. It's true, 'cause times will change, they don't remain the same. Point blank rain, I seen strain, it come down. The time with suspicions on my mind. I ain't got the time with suspicions on my mind. I ain't got the time with suspicions on my mind. I ain't got the time with suspicions on my mind. put him beside your rainbow.
I am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Corrosion, corrosion to her thighs, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got it, baby's got it, baby's got it. Corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Baby's got it. Baby's got it. Baby's got it. Baby's got a booger. That's one of those songs. I don't quite know the lyrics to. It may be like the WKRP theme, you know, where it's a because that's all made up. Those aren't. And there's an Italian singer back in the 70s who did an American gibberish song. It was like some disco song, but it was supposed to sound like an American singing in English, but weird. The 70s. I got a little taste of the 70s. I got about 10 years in for the 70s when I was a little kid. So that was some wild stuff. And they had some crazy shit on the Magic Picture Box, that's for sure. Good morning, Kate. That's right. WKRP in Cincinnati. I believe that TV show was an inspiration for many a young man to go into radio around that time, the late 70s, early 80s. Kind of the heyday of rock radio. And now it's all just satellites. You have some local stuff, but back in my day, you know, that kind of thing. I swear to God, I thought turkeys could, God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. Yeah. If you're not familiar with WKRP in Cincinnati, CBS show from, like I said, late 70s, early 80s, about radio in Cincinnati and rock radio too. It's really good. You should totally check it out. You used to go to Natty? I've never been to Cincinnati. I've technically been in Cleveland. The train stopped there for a few minutes. Wouldn't let us out though. I wanted to get out and plant my feet in the town of misery, which is Cleveland, Ohio. It's pre-colonization. It's a wild song. Totally messed me up when I was just starting to learn your planet's languages. Oh yeah. If people are trying to learn, what's up, Max? Good morning. And good morning, Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic. You got married for my first time up in Cleveland. You get in Cleveland? That song Cleveland Rocks. But, it was the Drew Carey show theme. One of the themes. It was a cover of somebody else doing it. But Cleveland Rocks, that's a good song. The song Cleveland Rocks, Cleveland Rocks. Captain Peon in the house. Monkey, sweet, sweet tasting monkey in the morning. Who else is who dares to disturb our realm? I think we got everybody so far. I guess something else is going on, which is fine. So we got this going on. It's what's today? Tuesday? It's Taco Tuesday. Are you getting tacos today? Anybody getting tacos? Orange whip? I like tacos. Anything that Trump does, I always just give the side eye, just kind of like, what's the real deal? Because it's never you can never take that shit at face value. You can never take anything the government gives you at face value. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's okay. Very few times it's okay. But you know, most of the time you're like, yo, I'm gonna keep my fucking eye on you, you piece of fucking shit. No taco, but you got a jet. Usually a jet is what you get after you eat the taco, but okay, it's breakfast time. I'm not gonna get potty mouth here. Let's get to the fun stuff, which is the news, which is not fun stuff, but I like to say fun stuff to kind of give you a false sense of security as we tell you these horrible stories. This is one of these things where I'm very skeptical of Trump. I'm skeptical of him anyway. I don't trust anything he does. Or the Democrats, too. I always have to couch that because some people are, oh, these damn liberals, these commies, hurt. It's like, no. All right, first item up for biz. Trump signs executive order to bring down prescription drug prices. You may be saying, all right, okay, well, that's good, right? Yeah, well, yeah. Now that's when you're like, your bullshit detector should be 120% at this point. So Trumpy signed an executive order that says, he says will bring down the price of prescription drugs in the U.S. by as much as 90%. Ooh. In an announcement yesterday, Trump said drunk companies, they are drunk with cash, drug companies who have been profiteering will have to bring prices down, but laid the blame for high prices primarily on foreign countries and foreigners. They're taking our gerbs. We're going to equalize, Trump said during a news conference. We're all going to pay the same. We're all going to pay what Europe pays. So you may be thinking, well, you know, if they get the drug prescription prices down to like super cheap, maybe they can get the health care cheap or even free. What? People in the U.S. have long been an outlier when it comes to the prices they pay for numerous types of life-saving medication, often paying several times more than their peers in other rich countries for nearly identical drugs. That phenomenon is often attributed to the substantial economic and political influence that the pharmaceutical industry wields in the U.S. Among other players, the high cost of medical drugs has been a source of popular discontent in the U.S. for years, and Trump accused the pharmaceutical industry of getting away with murder in 2017. Wow, if only he was president back then, he could have done something about it. Well, hey, wait a minute. But in his remarks on Monday, the U.S. leader also seemed to say that U.S. pharmaceutical companies were not ultimately to blame for the difference in prices. Not all their fault. They're not all greedy. Trump instead framed those high prices in the familiar terms of a trade imbalance with partners such as the European Union, and said the U.S. has been subsidizing lower drug prices in other nations. So the reason their drug prices are low and ours aren't is because the U.S. makes drug prices overseas lower. But wait, couldn't he do that for us? HMM scratching chin. What's up, Global? Good morning. Popularity was based on being first. Same today. DJT is new. Oh, yes, that's right. Chet I insert here. Yeah, there you go. I've signed an executive order for everyone to give me $5. Right. Okay, so Bernie Sanders impression coming up soon. So the foreign countries not paying their fair share. Senator Bernie Sanders, a left-wing politician who has railed against the high prices paid by U.S. patients for years. That's true. He's been, at least since when Bush was president. He was talking about high prices back then, too. So give the devil his due. As Trump's order wrongly blames foreign countries rather than the U.S. companies for those prices. I agree with President Trump. It's an outrage that the American people pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, Sanders said in a statement with an Israeli pistol to his head. But let's be clear, the problem is not that the price of prescription drugs is too low in Europe and Canada. The problem is that the extraordinarily greedy pharmaceutical industry made over $100 billion in profits last year by ripping off the American people. There you go. That's all I'm going to do for Bernie. That's all he gets. A fact sheet shared by the White House said the administration will communicate price targets to pharmaceutical manufacturers to establish that America, the largest purchaser and funder of prescription drugs. There we go. Funder of prescription drugs. See, that's the thing. Public funding helps fund these drug testing and development and stuff. And then they turn around and charge you, the person who helps create those public funds, and charge you out the wazoo. And these fuckers. Stock prices of U.S. drug makers ticked upward after the announcement. Experts have cast doubt on Trump's optimistic assertion that drug prices would drop quickly and substantially. It really does seem the plan is to ask manufacturers to voluntarily lower their prices to some point which is not known. Rachel Sachs, a health law expert at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, told the AP, if they do not lower their prices to the desired point, the Department of Health and Human Services shall take other actions with a very long timeline, some of which could potentially, years in the future, lower drug prices. So if they don't lower their prices to the desired point, Health and Human Services shall take other actions. Yeah, you got that. Those are some nice drugs you got there. Be ashamed something happened to them, eh? Yay. So they'll take other actions. I think that's the end of that. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. His executive orders have all been challenged in court, and I'm pretty sure somebody who doesn't like this is going to challenge it as well. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So meanwhile, Republicans hate you weakling sickies out there, you people who are sickos. What's up, Willie? Good to see you. Big Pharma will not do that shit. Of course not. Of course not, Willie. We know that. You and I, we're old salts. We've been around the block a few times. We understand. Use the Defense Production Act of 1950 to nationalize all of Big Pharma. Ooh. That's, yeah. Boy, when you say nationalize too, boy, you get those business types get the, hey, the heebie-jeebies. Well, they're trying to get you Medicare too. Their or your Medicaid, all that good stuff, right? GOP unveils plan to kick over 8 million people off of Medicaid, or as they also call it, Tuesday. House Republicans late Sunday unveiled legislation that analysts said would rip Medicaid coverage from millions of low-income Americans, including children and people with disabilities, you know, Hamas, to help fund tax breaks that would disproportionately benefit the wealthy. The bill text released by the House Energy and Commerce Committee is a section of the sprawling budget reconciliation package that Republicans are hoping to complete as soon as Memorial Day. The legislation includes major changes to Medicaid that, if enacted, would kick millions from the program, including work requirements for some enrollees and new payment mandates for adults living above 100% of the federal poverty level, which for a single individual is $15,650 in annual income for 2025. I think that's what they get in prison now. A snap analysis by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that the health care section of the new Republican bill would cut spending by at least $715 billion over the next decade and leave at least 8.6 million more people without insurance. That's just... You know what? If they had bootstraps, they could pick themselves up by them, I bet you. Many of the Medicaid proposals from House Republicans are technical and wonky and will be difficult for the public to absorb, said Larry Levitt, Executive Vice President for Health Policy at KFF. What won't be difficult to absorb is CBO's estimate that the changes will increase the number of people without health insurance by at least 8.6 million. With the stated goal of combating fraud, the GOP bill would implement a slew of new reporting and screening requirements, of course, to check Medicaid recipients' eligibility. Oh, that means testing getting meaner. Changes that analysts said would ensnare many in procedural red tape, resulting in large-scale loss of coverage. I believe that's the plan. Good morning, Desert Mance. It's good to see you, my friend. Hope all is well with you. The measure's work requirement mandates at least 80 hours of work, community service, or related activities per month. Most Medicaid recipients already work, and previous work requirements at the state level have resulted in disaster. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed your show last night, Willie. I feel terrible. Are you doing another show tonight? Let me know, okay? Or let us know in the chat. The legislation also alters cost-sharing requirements for certain expansion individuals under the Medicaid program. In plain terms, the bill would force certain Medicaid recipients to pay more for coverage, whether through premiums or other fees. You poors, you're not paying enough. What the fuck's wrong with you? If you make $20,000, the state might slap $1,000 of fees onto your Medicaid. Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of Federal Budget Policy at the Center for American Progress, wrote in an analysis of the bill, true sicko shit. My heart aches for the people whose lives will be ruined if this becomes law, Kogan added, so it's our job to stop it. Representative Frank Pallone Jr., isn't that Sylvester Stallone's? Oh, that's Pallone, never mind. The top Democrat on the House Energy and Commerce Committee said in a statement Sunday that this bill confirms what we've been saying all along. Trump and Republicans have been lying when they claim they aren't going to cut Medicaid and take away people's health care. Let's be clear, Republican leadership released this bill under cover of night because they don't want people to know their true intentions, said Pallone. In no uncertain terms, millions of Americans will lose their health care coverage, hospitals will close, seniors will not be able to access the care they need, and premiums will rise for millions of people if this bill passes. Taking health care away from children and moms, seniors in nursing homes, and people with disabilities to give tax breaks to people who don't need them is shameful, he added. Democrats have defeated Republican efforts to cut health care before, and we can do it again. Well, you better fucking do it. Because if you don't, that's going to be it for the Democratic Party, I think. Because Democrats are on thin ice already after basically choosing their nominees the last couple of elections. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, so... really, I mean, I have no love lost for the Democrats, but they're the only ones that's going to be able to stop this. So, and if they do end up stopping this, I think either way, this is just something to fundraise off of. It just seems like another, we're going to cut your shit. Oh, we're going to make sure that they don't cut your shit, so, and they're both like, give us money, because otherwise these fuckers are going to cut your shit, or, give us money if you want us to cut this. It's all, a scheme, like money laundering or something like that. Here's some good news out of Hawaii, I guess. Judge awards $680,000 in cash money to Hawaii military families over fuel-tainted water. I don't know if you heard about this story a while back about water fuel from the Air Force Base, I think, or the Naval Base getting into the water. I think it'll tell us in here. A federal judge has awarded a total of more than $680,000 to 17 families who say they were sickened by a 2021 jet fuel leak into a Navy drinking water system in Hawaii. The bellwether case has set the legal tone for another 7,500 military family members, civilians, and service members whose lawsuits are still awaiting resolution. U.S. District Judge Leslie Kobayashi, Kobayashi Maru, handed down the ruling Wednesday. Wasn't Kobayashi Maru, wasn't he the lawyer in The Usual Suspects? Awarding from $5,000 to more than $104,000 to each plaintiff. In her order, Kobayashi wrote that it was clear that even though the contaminated water could have caused many of the kinds of medical problems the military families experienced, there wasn't enough evidence to prove a direct link. Oh, there's a shock. So here's some money. The amount awarded to each plaintiff was significantly smaller than the roughly $225,000 to $1.25 million that their attorney, Christina Baer, requested during the 2-week trial in federal court in Honolulu. As bellwether plaintiffs, the 17 were chosen because they were seen as representatives of the thousands of other people whose cases are still pending. Baer called the damage awards disappointing, but said the families prevailed against all odds against the U.S. government. I guess. These families can be proud that they helped prove to the world what truly happened when the Navy poisoned the water supply near Pearl Harbor and sickened so many, Baer said in a news release. The court rejected the government's argument that thousands of our clients were just psychosomatic and that there was not enough fuel to make anyone sick. Just like people in Flint, Michigan, they're probably psychosomatic too. That's not lead in the water. Come on. Everybody's just pretending. Baer said the legal team was reviewing options for resolving the thousands of remaining cases. The government admitted liability for the spill before the trial began, but its attorneys disputed whether the plaintiffs were exposed to enough jet fuel to cause the vomiting, rashes, and other alleged negative health effects. So they said, we put the shit in the water, but, did we put that much shit in there to make you go, turn into a swamp thing? We didn't do that, you greedy fuckers. That's what they're saying. The government, those assholes, speaking of assholes, and that tax bill, y'all been hearing about this, right? Kirk cheated. Oh yeah, Kobayashi Maru was the no-win scenario, but that was Kobayashi was the lawyer in The Usual Suspects too, I think. But his name wasn't Kobayashi Maru, but his name was Kobayashi. So, Pete Postlethwaite, R.I.P. King. Critics decry Trump GOP tax bill as trickle-down economics on steroids. The trickle-down economics is a Reagan-era reference there to, just give all the rich people money and then the money just trickles down. It's like, no, you give the rich people all the money and then the rich people piss on you. That's what trickle-down economics really is. House Democrats and civil society groups, led condemnation of legislation introduced Monday by congressional Republicans and backed by President Donald Trump. And one lawmaker said is about tax breaks for billionaires and kickbacks to corporate donors at the expense of working class families, or as we say, business as usual. The 389-page bill includes trillions of dollars in tax cuts that would disproportionately benefit the ultra-wealthy and corporations, largely by extending Trump's first-term reductions in taxation, mainly for top earners, derided as the GOP tax scam. The proposal also broadens the estate tax exemption for the super rich, what they used to call the death tax, and makes permanent a massive tax break on offshore corporate profits. Oh, look at there. Yay, tax break on offshore corporate profits, baby. A top wish list item for big business. That's right. Money, money, money, money. The proposal will reduce government revenue by trillions of dollars and swell the national debt. They talk about the debt. I love how they talk about the debt. And then they're like, tax breaks. We like that kind of debt. Idiots. The proposal would reduce government revenue by trillions of dollars and swell the national debt, currently a staggering $36.2 trillion, or the equivalent of 127% of U.S. gross domestic product, and cost over $5 trillion. The bill partially offsets the revenue loss by sharply slashing social spending, including on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Come on, you don't want them kids eating food, you fuckers. And Medicaid, we told you about that. The legislation would impose work and cost-sharing requirements on many Medicaid beneficiaries and increase eligibility checks. Critics warn that millions of people would lose their health insurance coverage if the bill is passed in its current form. Former Democratic U.S. Labor Secretary Robert Wright, you saw him on Lord of the Rings there, called the proposed legislation trickle-down economics on steroids. So this is what he says. Trump GOP tax bill extend 2017 cuts for top earners, increase the pass-through loophole for big businesses, expand the estate tax exemption for the ultra-rich, and make a huge tax break for offshore corporate profits permanent. Yeah. They were trying to use Doge to cut down all the shit, and then they ended up cutting programs that are actually vital because they don't know what the fuck they were doing. Those damn socialists, that's probably what they were thinking. Or communists. On the positive side, the popular child tax credit would grow for many households under the proposal. So would the standard deduction. There would also be temporary tax breaks for overtime pay, car loan interest, and tips. See, now that kind of stuff I can get behind. Right? You know, the popular child tax credit would grow. Okay, that's fine. So would the standard deduction? Sure. That helps like middle class and people trying to get in the middle class. There'd also be temporary tax breaks for overtime pay, car loan interest, and tips. See, like this is all practical stuff. But then you get into that whole, but we're going to give like these billionaires more and more kinds of shit like that. That's government welfare right there. The proposal also establishes a new tax-preferred savings account for children younger than 8 years old, under which the government would contribute the first $1,000 for kids born between 2025 and 2028. If you're born in 2029, they don't mention 2029 because that's when that asteroid Apophis is supposed to pass by Earth, but everybody knows it's going to hit. However, critics noted that millions of families would receive no benefit from the child tax credit increase. Wealthy business partnerships would get an even bigger pass-through deduction than in an earlier draft of the bill, and taxes on many tips and overtime work remain. This bill isn't about balancing the budget. It's about tax breaks for billionaires and kickbacks to corporate donors and billionaires while silencing public voices, said Representative Melanie Stansberry, Democrat out of New Mexico. We see the grift and we're calling it out. Oh, yeah. All right. You call it out, girl. Representative Brendan Boyle, Democrat out of Pennsylvania, the ranking member of the House Budget Committee, noted that Trump loves to call his budget the big, beautiful bill. I think he's talking about Clinton, actually, because, he convinced him to run for president, after all. It is for billionaires, he added. While Trump's billionaire donors get trillions in tax cuts, working Americans get the largest Medicaid cuts in American history. House Ways and Means Committee ranking member Representative Richard Neal, Democrat out of Massachusetts, warned, I'll tell you what's coming. Handouts for billionaires, health care cuts for the people. Then Snake Lady had something to say about him. That's fine. Civil society groups also sounded the alarm over the bill. Families across the country are struggling now more than ever to get food on the table, visit the doctor, and afford life-saving medication. Parents Together Action Executive Director Eileen Areza said Monday. But instead of finding ways to offer some relief, Republicans in Congress are racing to pass a bill to hand massive new tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy. Even worse, their plan is to pay for it by ripping health care and nutrition aid away from millions. She added, one thing is clear, gutting Medicaid and SNAP to fund tax breaks for the rich is cruelty disguised as policy. Not very well disguised cruelty. And parents across the country will take note of how their representatives vote this week. Yeah, right. As evidence of who they're fighting for, their constituents or their wealthy donors. Right? So let's say that they decide to, laws. Yes, we've got to stop this. But if their donors say, nah, let it happen, they'll be like, well, the donors said. David Cass, executive director of Americans for Tax Fairness, said in a statement that the House GOP has revealed in broad daylight that their tax bill is a clear scam, one that hands out massive giveaways to their billionaire and corporate donors off of the backs of their constituents with a price tag of over $5 trillion. The plan's massive cuts to vital programs like Medicaid and SNAP will drive up health care and food prices for millions of workers and families while billionaires pocket the money and the national debt soars, Cass added. Working and middle-class families and future generations shouldn't have to pay higher prices simply to enrich billionaire elites and the politicians in their pockets. Look at this. Look at that little curmudgeon, right? How'd you like to see that little peeping Tom in your window watching you have sex, huh? Yikes. Gross. Little toad man. He does. He looks like a look at this motherfucker. He looks like a fucking frog. Look at it. He's got a frog face. He's got ribbit. Look at this guy, guys. He's a frog. He's like, God damn it, who let these fucking frogs in here, you sons of bitches. Sorry. I don't like Mike Johnson. I like Mike Hunt. Mike Hunt. See, that old joke, Mike Hunt. There was a guy, I think he was a coroner in North Mississippi, and he ran for office, and his name was Michael Hunt, but he went by Mike. Not a good plan. I see more butts. In our Common Dreams providing a lot of the news today. I like Common Dreams. They do kind of sweeten it on the Democratic side. So if you scrape that part off, it's the news is good. So you have to scrape off the little propaganda, the bias. If you can scrape that off, it's good stuff. Yeah, and now nonprofits are getting attacked as well, as Republicans slip nonprofit killer bill into tax package. House Republicans on Monday quietly revived a proposal that would grant the Trump administration broad authority to crush nonprofits it views as part of the political opposition, from environmental justice organizations to news outlets. Fight for the Future and other advocacy groups called attention to the measure, which was buried in the final pages of the House Ways and Means Committee's draft reconciliation bill, or reconciliation bill, starting on page 380. A markup hearing for the legislation is scheduled to take place today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The proposal would empower the U.S. Treasury Department to revoke the tax-exempt status of nonprofits deemed material supporters of terrorism with only a hollow simulacrum. What? Look at these fucking Harvard-ass writers. Simulacrum of due process for the accused organizations. It's already illegal for nonprofits to provide material support for terrorism. The House is about to hand the Trump administration the ability to strip nonprofits of their 501c3 status without any reason or recourse. This is a five-alarm fire for nonprofits nationwide, said Leah Holland, campaigns and communications director at Fight for the Future. If the text of last autumn's HR 9495 is passed in the budget, any organization with goals that do not line up with MAGA can be destroyed with a wink from Trump to the Treasury. The measure passed the Republican-controlled House late last year with the support of more than a dozen Democrats, but it never received a vote in the Senate. This terribly thought-out legislation means that under the current administration, every environmental, racial justice, LGBTQ+ Gender justice, immigration justice, and particularly any anti-genocide organization throughout the country may be on the chopping block, said Holland, if Democrats capitulate to the wanton destruction of crucial civil society institutions. They had better expect civil society to burn them to the ground for that betrayal. I'm assuming figuratively speaking, not literally, because that would actually take some balls to do something like that. So the GOP's renewed push for what opponents have called the nonprofit killer bill comes as the Trump administration wages war on nonprofit organizations, threatening to strip them of their tax-exempt status as part of a sweeping attack on the president's political opponents. In the months since inauguration, Trump and his cabinet have found other means of cracking down on political speech, particularly speech in favor of Palestinians, by deporting student activists and revoking hundreds of student visas or sending them to Louisiana. He's already threatened to attempt to revoke the tax-exempt status of Harvard University, part of his larger quest to discipline and punish colleges. Journalist Noah Horowitz wrote for The Intercept late Monday, but the nonprofit clause of the tax bill would give the president wider power to go after organizations that stand in his way, he said. Robert McCaw, government affairs director at the Council on American Islamic Relations, that's CARE, said Monday that this provision is the latest in a growing wave of legislative attacks on constitutional rights. CARE is urging every member of the Ways and Means Committee to vote no on the inclusion of this provision and to support an expected amendment to strike the language, the group said in a statement. 3 Democratic members of the committee, Representatives Brad Schneider from Illinois, Tom Suozzi, New York, and Jimmy Panetta, hey, Jimmy, from California, previously voted in favor of the nonprofit killer bill on the House floor last year. They must reverse course and vote to oppose it in committee. So, yeah. A lot of fuckery afoot, my friends. Everywhere. It's everywhere. You know, and you're like, well, yeah, this is the Republicans. See, that's the thing. The Democrats don't fiercely go after this stuff. They have to allow, each side has to allow each other their hate speech against, for example, the Democrats say, yeah, the Republicans are the ones that's just trying to kill all your Medicaid, and your SNAP and all this stuff. That's them doing it. They're actively doing, which they actively are. But a lot of times they'll strategically vote, to say, we can vote to try to stop it, but as long as you don't have enough votes to actually stop it, it's okay. That's part of the game. It's part of the theater, right? It's all bullshit. So the Democrats let it happen. And then when the Democrats have power, they do, fuckery, liberal, neoliberal shit, So it's like, oh, we can vote our way out of this. You're funny. You ain't voting your way out of shit. What else we got here? What other fun inventions and delights do we have for you today? Some news for veterans. Trump orders West Los Angeles veterans, the VA campus, to house thousands of veterans. That's the Veterans Administration. Trumpy issued an executive order calling for the existing West Los Angeles Veterans Affairs Medical Center campus to become a national center for warrior independence that would house thousands of homeless veterans. The order, keeping promises to veterans and establishing a national center for warrior independence, directs VA Secretary Doug Collins to create a plan within 120 days, that's about 4 months, that would allow the West Los Angeles VA campus to house up to 6,000 veterans by January 1st, 2028. The new center, for another 3 years, the new center would serve the Los Angeles area and veterans nationwide, with the 388-acre campus helping them get housing, receive substance abuse or addiction treatment. Under Trump, VA is implementing a host of important reforms to improve care and benefits for our nation's heroes, Collins said in a statement Friday. This executive order builds on the progress we've made so far and puts us on a path to fixing some of the department's most vexing problems, Collins also noted that the VA wants to make it a place for homeless veterans from across the nation who can travel there to find housing and support and start their journey back to self-sufficiency. The VA did not say how the programs outlined for the proposed National Center differ from existing VA programs. The executive order also calls for the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the VA to use housing vouchers to get people into the new veterans' housing. The order comes as the Department of Veterans Affairs is currently fighting against a federal judge's order for a similar expansion of housing on the West Los Angeles campus. In September, Judge David O. Carter, a federal district judge and Vietnam veteran himself, issued a sweeping ruling in a major case brought by disabled veterans. He said that he has not made good on its promise to build housing for veterans and ordered the construction of 1,800 new permanent housing units and 750 temporary housing units. He also declared several leasing contracts on the campus, including ones from oil companies and the nearby University of California, Los Angeles. That would be UCLA. As void. An appeals court extended a stay on that in the fall. Arguments in the appeal started in April, and a ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is expected soon. It's unclear how the new order impacts the ongoing legal fight over the use of the campus or if the VA stance in the appeal will change given similarities here to Judge Carter's directive. Carter declined to comment as the case is ongoing in its appeal, and the VA directed Task and Purpose, that's the name of the outfit here, that's reporting this, to Secretary Collins' statement. The land was deeded to the federal government in 1888 to serve veterans from the U.S. Civil War. For decades, the land was home to homes for veterans, but several of the buildings were closed in the 70s. The campus currently is predominantly used for VA medical care. In recent years, a large encampment of homeless veterans formed on the perimeter of the campus, eventually being dubbed Veterans Row. Advocates and the veterans pushed for the VA and local governments to do more to help the thousands of unhoused veterans in the greater Los Angeles area. In 2021, the encampment was cleared with the agreement that more of the VA campus would be used for housing. A few dozen veterans were moved into several tiny homes, most donated by people such as former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, that were put up on the VA grounds. Those have been hit by a series of problems, including fires and flood damage. The ongoing lawsuit brought by a group of veterans argued that the VA was not doing enough with its land to help house veterans. The VA has argued that it was already working on housing for veterans and that it was bringing in money for services via leasing agreements. Judge Carter disagreed. There are 32,888 veterans experiencing homelessness nationwide out of a total unhoused population of 771,480, according to Housing and Urban Development. In LA County, almost 3,000 people of the 75,312 total unhoused population are veterans. That's crazy, 75,000. And that's probably a low number, too. According to the LA Homeless Services Authority, the Department of Veterans Affairs is currently working on building 1,200 new housing units on the West Los Angeles campus by 2030 as a result of a settlement for a separate and previous lawsuit brought by veterans. It's also unclear if the new executive order counts that project towards its housing unit goal. So, always want some good news about veterans, especially the homeless veterans who desperately are trying to get off the street. What's up, Peace Dove? Good to see you. But of course, it's never enough. It's never enough. It always just seems like it's kind of piecemeal. When we could really, if we put our minds to it here in the United States, we could already have had like high-speed rail and all these things that can benefit society as a whole, and maybe not have wars and not have as many veterans. That would be nice too. So what's this? Okay. Yeah. So let's swing it back to money. These crazy tariffs. Was it U.S. charging China 145%, some ridiculous amount. Well, the China and the U.S. started talking, and they decided to reduce the majority of tariffs after their first round of trade talks. How about that? Isn't that nice? China and the U.S. have agreed to remove most tariffs imposed since April 2nd, a breakthrough following high-stakes talks that could help resolve a trade war that had raised import duties to unprecedented levels. 145%. The two countries made the announcement in a joint statement yesterday. The agreement lowers the U.S. additional tariff rates on Chinese goods to 30%, and Chinese duties on U.S. imports to 10%. On top of some retaliatory levies imposed earlier on selected American goods. We have substantially moved down the tariff levels, said U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who led the American delegation at the talks in a press conference held shortly after the statement's release. Neither side wants a decoupling. Oh, giggity, giggity goo, giggity schmoigen. According to the joint statement, both China and the U.S. pledged to remove 91 percentage points of the April tariffs and suspend a further 24 percentage points for the next 90 days, leaving 10 percentage points of the duties in place effective tomorrow. Separately, the 20% duties on Chinese goods imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump before April in the name of stopping flows of the illegal drug fentanyl will remain in effect. Your fentanyl tax is in effect, fuckers. We ain't dropping the drug tax. Which is kind of ironic. They're fighting for lower drug prices, but not lower drug taxes. Because if you think about it, that's a drug tax. Beijing has also agreed to pause or remove all non-tariff countermeasures imposed since April 2nd, which include the addition of some U.S. firms to sanctions list and export controls on some rare earths. Great band, by the way, Rare Earth. The talks held at the weekend in Geneva, Switzerland, not to be confused with Geneva, Ohio, were the first formal negotiations between the two superpowers since Trump slapped new tariffs of 145% on China this year. In retaliation, Beijing had imposed 125% levies on U.S. goods. The two sides have agreed to establish a trade talk mechanism to maintain close communication and engage in further consultations on a regular and ad hoc basis, China's Ministry of Commerce said in an online statement on Monday. If needed, working-level discussions may also be conducted on relevant economic and trade issues, according to the ministry. The latest high-level economic and trade talks between China and the U.S. have achieved substantive progress, significantly reducing bilateral tariff levels. The move meets the expectation of producers and consumers in both countries, serves the interests of both sides and the common interests of the world, the statement added. We hope that the U.S. side will build on the meeting, continue to work with China in the same direction, completely rectifying its wrong practice of unilateral tariff hikes, strengthening mutually beneficial cooperation, maintain the sound, stable, and sustainable development of China-U.S. trade and economic relations, and jointly inject more certainty and stability into the world economy. It's like, all right, hopefully this will keep people from freaking the fuck out. What's up, Bella? Good to see you, bud. Good. Hope everything's cool with you. Vice Premier Lefeng, Bessent, and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer led the 2 days of high-level meetings in Geneva. In a statement released by the White House on Sunday, Greer was quoted as calling the dialogue constructive. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought, he said, according to the release. Greer cited the U.S.'s $1.2 trillion trade deficit as the reason Trump had declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, expressing confidence the talks would represent a first step towards resolving that emergency. Discussions with China over fentanyl remained on a separate track to talks regarding the U.S. trade deficit, Bessent said, though he added that the two sides had spoken in depth about the fentanyl issue in Geneva, with the presence of high-level Chinese public security officials making those talks more productive. Zhang Zhui, president and chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management, or PAM, said the outcome of the U.S.-China talks was better than markets had expected. While this is not a final solution, you should probably never say that, it's a good starting point for the two countries to negotiate a full range of issues, including but not limited to trade, he said. From China's perspective, the agreement represented a success, as China had responded forcefully to the U.S. imposition of high tariffs and had eventually managed to get the tariffs lowered without making concessions, Zhang added. Given this development, I think China is unlikely to roll out more fiscal stimulus in the foreseeable future. The growth outlook has brightened for both China and the U.S. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu, bless you, oh boy, that made me want to sneeze too. Holy shit, talking about psychology. On an official trip to Qatar, said he was unaware of the latest development, but he reiterated the U.S. had violated World Trade Organization rules by imposing reciprocal tariffs on the city, which is a free port with zero tariffs. As a separate customs territory, Hong Kong has its own tariff policies, he said. We will continue to file complaints with the World Trade Organization. The Hong Kong business community, meanwhile, is expected to take advantage of the 90-day truce to front-load their exports to U.S. buyers, as economists viewed the temporary deal as more of an effort to buy time, and the tariff war could eventually heat up again. It probably would. The Hong Kong market responded positively to the news of the agreement, with the Hang Seng Index rising by 2.98% and the Hang Seng Tech Index climbing by 5.16% on Monday. As of yesterday, the offshore yuan had broken the 7.2 threshold against the dollar, trading at 7.198, its highest level in 6 months. Yeah, it's a very lengthy article. So I'll just put this in the chats here, and you guys can, if you want to read the rest of this. It's basically the chats have been, the tariffs have been reduced, and then it goes into like all kinds of businessy stuff. So I'll put the old quick link in there if you want to read the rest of it. But it's mostly just like numbers and shit like that. So anyway, so yeah, we all knew that was just bullshit. These 145%, and then they did 125% on these tariffs, and now it's like, okay, we'll bring them down. So I mean, what did that do in the meantime? Is Trump trying to manipulate the stock market with this? I think so. Or somebody is using Trump to manipulate the stock market. Maybe that's a better theory. Yeah. So meanwhile, let's go to Africa. I bless the rains down in Africa. Heavy gunfire clashes in Libya's Tripoli after killing of militia leader. Come on. In Tripoli. Beautiful place. It was really beautiful before we fucked it up. Pardon. The United Nations has called for urgent de-escalation in Libya's capital, Tripoli, as rival gunmen exchange fire in the city's southern districts after the killing of a powerful militia leader, with authorities imposing an emergency lockdown. The appeal early on Tuesday came as residents reported hearing heavy gunfire and explosions across multiple neighborhoods from about 9 p.m. local time yesterday. From Al Jazeera reporting from Libya's Misrata, one of their reporters said security sources had confirmed the killing of Abdel Ghani al-Kikli, widely known as Ghaniwa, who is the head of the powerful Stability Support Authority, the SSA militia. Gunfire and clashes then consumed several parts of Tripoli. Al-Kikli was one of the capital's most influential military leaders and had recently been involved in disputes with rival armed groups, including factions linked to Misrata. His SSA is under the Presidential Council, which came to power in 2021 with the Government of National Unity, the GNU, of Abdul Hamid Debeba? I think I've tried saying that word before. We're going to say Debeba. Through a UN-recognized process. Trina said that at least 6 people have been wounded, although it remains unclear whether they are security force members or civilians. In a statement shortly after the clashes began, the UN support mission in Libya, UNSMIL, said it was alarmed by the unfolding security situation in Tripoli with intense fighting with heavy weaponry in densely populated civilian areas. UNSMIL added that it calls on all parties to immediately cease fighting and restore calm and reminds all parties of their obligations to protect civilians at all times. Ha ha ha ha. Civilians, you're funny. UNSMIL voiced support for local mediation efforts, particularly those led by elders and community leaders, emphasizing the need to protect civilians amid mounting tensions. The GNU's Ministry of Internal Affairs urged residents to stay home and avoid movement, warning of further instability, while the Ministry of Education suspended classes across Tripoli on Tuesday, citing the deteriorating security situation. The GNU's medical platform or media platform said early on Tuesday that the Ministry of Defense had fully taken control of the Abu Salim neighborhood. I heard heavy gunfire and I saw red lights in the sky, one resident told the Reuters news agency on condition of anonymity. Two others told Reuters that the gunfire was echoing all over their neighborhoods of Abu Salim and Salah Eden. Videos and images online showed plumes of black smoke amid the sound of gunfire, as well as armed men in the streets and convoys entering the city. Footage verified by Al Jazeera's Sanad fact-checking agency captured the sound of medium-caliber gunfire in several neighborhoods, including areas where the SSA militia is known to operate. Yeah, so several districts have seen what local sources describe as suspicious military maneuvers, with convoys arriving from Zawiya, Zintan, and Misrata, seen by many as preparations for a possible showdown in the capital. Al Jazeera said the renewed clashes have prompted anger and worry. People are angry that every time these armed groups clash, civilians are caught in the crossfire, he said, adding that residents are demanding accountability. When these groups fight and people are killed, no one is held responsible. Locals want justice and expect the authorities to hold those behind the violence accountable, he said. Libya plunged into chaos following a NATO-backed uprising that toppled and killed Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi back in 2011. The oil-rich nation has been governed for most of the past decade by rival governments in eastern and western Libya, each backed by an array of fighter groups and foreign governments. Because you keep them divided, you can control Libya from the outside. Yeah, so, and that's what's going on in Libya, and has been. And before Gaddafi was taken out, it was Libya was considered, a very progressive country. But we can't have that, They were about ready to take, I think they're about ready to take themselves off the dollar or something, off the petrodollar. Smoke 'em or the weeds. What's up, Yona? Good morning to you, my friend. Hope you're doing well, sir. What else we got here? Oh, more bad news. So, Myanmar. Let's go to Myanmar as the Myanmar junta airstrike kills 22 at a school. Schools. The strike hit a school in the village of O Hatin Quin, around 100 kilometers northwest of the epicenter of the March 28th quake, at about 10 a.m. local time there. UN Chief Antonio Guterres is deeply alarmed by reports of the strike. So this airstrike hit a school, killing 22 people, including 20 children, despite a purported humanitarian ceasefire called to help the Southeast Asian nation recover from a devastating earthquake. So yeah, they had this earthquake, and now, they're destroying schools. schools must remain areas in which children have a safe place to learn and not be bombed. Yeah, there's the quote of the day right there. Schools must remain areas in which children have a safe place to learn and not be fucking bombed. The green school building was a shattered husk on Monday afternoon. Its metal roof crumpled with gaping holes blasted through its brickwork walls. Over a dozen abandoned book bags were piled before a pole flying the Myanmar flag outside as parents chiseled small graves out of the hard earth to bury the shrouded bodies of their children. For now, 22 people in total, 20 children and 2 teachers have been killed, said a 34-year-old teacher at the school. We tried to spread out the children, but the fighter was too fast and dropped its bombs, she added. I haven't been able to collect all the casualty data as parents are in a rush. An education official from the area of the village in Sagaing region gave the same toll. The junta information team said reports of the strike were fabricated news. There was no airstrike on non-military targets, it said in a statement. Witnesses would tend to disagree with you there, Bob. Myanmar has been riven by civil war since the military deposed a civilian government in 2021, with the junta suffering stinging losses to a myriad of anti-coup guerrillas and long-active ethnic armed groups. But the military pledged a ceasefire throughout this month to continue the rebuilding and rehabilitation process after the magnitude 7.7 quake in Myanmar's central belt that killed nearly 3,800 people. Tens of thousands are still living outside after the catastrophic jolt demolished or badly damaged their homes, facing the prospect of the monsoon season starting in the coming weeks. That's right, folks. The rains are going to be flowing again pretty soon. The needs are immense. Jagan Shapagan, Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, told AFP on Monday, my worry is that time is not on our side. The United Nations and independent conflict monitors say the junta has continued its campaign of aerial bombardment. What, us? We haven't been doing that. Despite the armistice meant to alleviate suffering. Last week, the UN said that since the earthquake, more than 200 civilians have been killed in at least 243 military attacks, including 171 airstrikes. In its ceasefire declaration, the military warned it would take necessary defensive measures if pressed by its opponents. Numerous anti-coup and ethnic armed groups have made own pledges to pause hostilities. However, during the truce, some residents in eastern Myanmar said they've been displaced as anti-coup forces besieged junta-held towns on a lucrative trade route towards neighboring Thailand. The March earthquake saw the ground shear up to 6 meters or 20 feet in places, according to NASA analysis, leveling apartments, opening yawning holes in roads, and collapsing one major bridge. The relief response is also being hobbled by further shortfalls after Trumpy slashed Washington's international aid budget. So Myanmar, not the place to be, at least right now. Apparently, neither is Burkina Faso, as their army and militias killed 130 members of ethnic group. Human Rights Watch says, craziness all around the world, folks. At least 130 civilians belonging to the Fulani ethnic group were killed by Burkina Faso's army and allied militias near the western town of Silenzo in March, according to Human Rights Watch. That's HRW. The killings took place amid a major weeks-long military campaign by special forces that resulted in widespread civilian deaths and massive displacement of the Fulani pastoralist community in the region, the rights group said in a report on Monday. It added that an al-Qaeda-affiliated group called the Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wa al-Muslimin, or JNIM, oh, thank God for that, then carried out a series of retaliatory attacks hitting villages that the armed group perceived as having assisted the military. Ilaria Aligrozi, senior Sahel researcher at HRW, said in a statement that the viral videos of the atrocities by pro-government militias near Silenzo that initially circulated told only part of the story. Further research uncovered that Burkina Faso's military was responsible for these mass killings of Fulani civilians, which were followed by deadly reprisals by an Islamist armed group, Alagrosi added. The government needs to impartially investigate these deaths and prosecute all these responsible. HRW had reported in March that the government's involvement was likely due to video evidence online. At that time, the government strongly denied the allegations, saying in a statement, it condemned the propagation on social media of images inducing hate and community violence and fake information aimed at undermining social cohesion in the West African country. Burkina Faso's government and army did not immediately react to Monday's report, which alleged that the Burkinabe army led and participated in the massacre of more than 130, possibly more, ethnic Fulani civilians by pro-government militias. Yeah, so the rights organization's report is based on interviews with witnesses to the attacks, militia members, journalists, and civil society members, those people. The civil society members. Witnesses quoted by HRW said hundreds of government troops and drones, as well as a pro-government militia called the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, the VDP, were involved in attacks on Solenzo and other towns in the western Boucle de Mohon region. The witnesses said most of the victims in Banwa province were women, children, and older people, because that's what they usually are everywhere else. Military helicopters and drones surveilled the area, indicating direct command control of the operation, HRW said. A 44-year-old Fulani herder who lost 8 family members told HRW that thousands of families from more than 20 villages were forced to flee to neighboring Mali in search of protection. However, we couldn't reach Mali without crossing villages that were occupied by VDPs and the army. The VDP shot at us like animals while drones were flying over our heads. Many women and children died because they could not run. Military rulers took power in Burkina Faso in 2022, but they have largely failed to provide the stability promised, as more than 60% of the country is estimated to be outside government control. The military has also turned to mass recruitment of civilians who are deployed in poorly trained militia units, leading to worsening tensions between ethnic groups. Yeah. What the heck? What in the name of science fiction? So, I think I put that in there twice. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing just like everywhere, all over Africa, you're seeing India and Pakistan. We'll get to them shortly. Russia, Ukraine, and various other little disputes that are going on around the world. It's just it's a world war going on. It's not coagulated into where it's allies versus Axis powers, but the war is just actually going on all over the world. It's just, we see what we see. Kelio Egregoris, hello. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you're well. All's quiet over on Rumble and Rockfin. Les Crickets. Speaking of French, and staying a little bit in Africa, as France vows retaliation after Algeria expels more French diplomats. They be kicking the French out left and right in Africa. They are done with their French nonsense. France vowed swift retaliation after Algeria ordered a new round of mass expulsions of French diplomats in the latest flare-up of a spiraling political feud between the two countries. During a visit to Calvados, Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot condemned Algeria's latest move, describing it as neither in the interest of Algeria nor in the interest of France. The departure of agents on temporary assignments is unjustified and unjustifiable, Barrot told reporters in Pont-l'Évêque, northern France. We will respond immediately, firmly, and proportionately, as we did last month, to this attack on our interests. Barrot's statement follows Algeria's decision on Sunday to order the deportation of all French employees appointed to diplomatic, consular, and cultural missions in Algeria who, according to Algerian authorities, were assigned outside the approval of official frameworks and procedures. The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned the French charge d'affaires in Algiers to deliver the request in person. The move comes amid what officials on both sides now describe as the most serious diplomatic crisis between Paris and Algiers in years. One rooted in espionage suspicions, tit for tat, giggity, expulsions, and diverging political stances, particularly over Western Sahara. Algerian officials say at least 15 French employees were recently sent to Algeria without proper accreditation in what they say constitutes a serious and repeated breach of diplomatic norms. 2 of those employees reportedly belonged to the French Interior Ministry and were believed to be stepping in for French intelligence agents who had previously been declared persona non grata. These individuals, who originally held passports for short-term missions and were later issued diplomatic passports to facilitate their presence in Algeria, an unnamed Algerian official told the state-run news agency APS. Algiers didn't reveal the number of French personnel it now demands to be repatriated. This comes just weeks after it expelled 12 French security personnel in retaliation for the arrest of an Algerian consular officer in Paris on April 8th, accused by French authorities of involvement in an attempted kidnapping of an Algerian dissident. Paris swiftly expelled 12 Algerian diplomatic staff, some of whom it said were linked to Algerian security services. The French ambassador to Algiers, Stéphane Romatet, was summoned back to Paris for consultations in one of the highest diplomatic escalations between the two states. At the center of the crisis is a broader loss of trust, further complicated by a complex post-colonial relationship. I know, right? You used to be my colony, now you are not, but I still want you. You know what I'm saying, baby? Algeria accuses France of routinely flouting agreed diplomatic procedures while also pointing to obstacles faced by its own diplomats in France. The North Africa state says several Algerian consuls have been left in limbo, with at least 9 still awaiting accreditation months after their nomination. It also cites repeated denials of entry to Algerian diplomatic passport holders by French border officials. Tensions began to spike in July of last year after France shifted its position on Western Sahara, expressing support for Morocco's autonomy initiative, a red line for Algiers, which backs the separatist movement of Polisario in the territory. The rift widened further in the autumn with the arrest of Algerian French writer Boualem Sansal, who over remarks made on the far-right French platform Frontières, which were deemed an attack on Algeria's territorial integrity. Efforts at de-escalation, including an April phone call between President Emmanuel Macron and his Algerian counterpart, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, was as well as Barrot's visit to Algiers in early April, initially raised hopes of renewed cooperation. However, the arrest of the Algerian diplomat days later derailed the reconciliation process. That'll do it. You know, you arrest diplomats, that's pretty much a bdee, that's all, folks. Algeria has since blamed conservatives within the French government, namely Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau, for sabotaging the fragile diplomatic thaw. Despite losing his parliamentary majority in last year's elections, Macron remains the ultimate authority on France's foreign policy. He has consistently called for dialogue and reconciliation, in contrast to some hardline ministers who are threatening to dismantle post-independence agreements with Algeria. What? Oh, okay. Reports indicate that there are tensions between him and the right-wing ministers in his cabinet, particularly regarding Algeria, with the right wing moonwalking to Matignon, and perhaps eventually the Élysée. Any fragile reconciliation efforts that France has made with Algeria could soon be undone. So, yeah. So, France is leaving Africa, but they are burning some bridges on the way out. So, you know, we told you a while back about maybe a couple weeks ago about the governor in Pennsylvania getting his house, getting the governor's mansion torched now, but now it's happening across the water. It's happening over. Hey, Yipper, what's up, buddy? Police investigate fires at properties and car linked to Keir Starmer. Uh-oh. Bum, bum, bum, bum. Keir Starmer. Counterterrorism officers are investigating after suspicious fires at Sir Keir Starmer's North London home, a second property, and a vehicle linked to him. Scotland Yard said it was keeping an open mind as to whether the three blazes which broke out in the space of 4 days were connected. Well, yeah, there's a connection. It's Keir Starmer. Oh, you mean like it's the same person doing it? Probably not. Everybody hates Keir Starmer. The vehicle fire last Thursday was on the same street as Starmer's home and is connected to him. The blaze at the second property broke out early on Sunday. A Met spokesman said the investigation team are also considering 2 other incidents: a vehicle fire in Northwest 5 on May 8th and a fire at the entrance of a property in North 7 on May 11th, and are investigating whether they may be linked to the fire in Northwest 5 on May 12th. I said good day, sir. All right, I won't do the whole thing like that. At this early stage of the investigation, officers are working to establish the circumstances of all 3 fires and are keeping an open mind as to whether there is any connection. All are being treated as suspicious at this time, you think? And inquiries remain ongoing. Yeah, it's just natural for cars to, just explode. Fire crews and police officers were called to the 4-bedroom property at 1:35 a.m. local time. The entrance to the house was damaged, but no one was hurt. By the early evening, the force confirmed that its counterterrorism unit was investigating the suspected arson attack. Starmer had been letting out his house, I guess that means renting it out, though to be worth £2 million since he and his family moved to Downing Street after Labour's election win last summer. So he had to move out of his house. As a precaution, and due to the property having previous connections with a high-profile public figure, officers from the Met's Counterterrorism Command are leading the investigation into this fire. Inquiries are ongoing to establish the potential cause of the fire, the force said. The cause of the fire continues to be investigated, but at this stage is being treated as suspicious. We're calling shenanigans on this one. Starmer's official spokesman said, I can only say that the Prime Minister thanks the emergency services for their work and it is subject to a live investigation. I said good day, sir. On Monday afternoon, neighbors said 3 cordons were in place at lunchtime until police sealed off most of the street. Officers were present throughout the day. One resident who lives several doors down from Starmer's property said he was woken by the sound of a loud bang, giggity, that sounded like shattered glass. Dan Nicholson, who lives nearby, said he felt worried after there was a separate, unrelated fire in the neighborhood last week. I saw a car catch on fire. It feels like too much of a coincidence, he added. London Fire Brigade said the firefighters were called to a small fire outside a property in North London this morning. The brigade was called at 1:11 a.m. and the fire was under control by 1:33 a.m. 2 fire engines attended the scene. Fire crews were called to the second property, also in North London, in the early hours of Sunday morning. The building is understood to have been purchased by Starmer when he was a young barrister. So they're going down the timeline of all the property. The LFB said part of the front door of a house converted into flats was damaged by fire. One person was assisted to safety by crews wearing breathing apparatus. It said a next-door neighbor said that his family had been left shaken by the attack so close to their front door. The homeowner, who wished to remain anonymous, said that the occupant of the address linked to the Prime Minister felt similarly upset. Separately, Starmer's home has previously been targeted by protesters. 3 people were convicted of public order offenses after staging a pro-Palestinian demonstration outside on April 9th last year. Oh, there's Starmer right there. That's his wife? Okay. Lady Starmer, I guess that's her. The Prime Minister's wife had returned home from a shopping trip with their son when she noticed youth demand protesters had unfurled a banner which read "Starmer Stop the Killing" and was surrounded by red handprints. Westminster Magistrates Court in central London was told that children's shoes used in a number of pro-Palestinian protests to symbolize children killed in Gaza were lined up outside the front door. Youth Demand describes itself as a new youth resistance campaign fighting for an end to genocide. Giving evidence at the one-day trial, Lady Starmer said, "I felt a bit sick. To be perfectly honest, I felt apprehensive and uncomfortable." The former lawyer said she drove away and contacted her husband's office. She added, "I didn't want to stop and be obvious." Andrew Morris, a defense barrister, asked whether she knew it was a peaceful protest. She replied, "It would look like a peaceful protest if it hadn't been outside my home." Yeah. But she knows why they're there. Lenora Ward and Daniel Formanton, both from Leeds, and Zosia Lewis from Newcastle upon Tyne, old ass name, were each found guilty of public order offenses under Section 42 of the Criminal Justice and Police Act 2001 and breaching court bail, which they denied. The trio were handed suspended prison sentences. Section 42 powers cover the harassment of a person at their home address if a police officer suspects it's causing alarm or distress to the occupant. The Starmers bought their home in 2004 for £650,000. Since then, they have carried out renovations, including a loft conversion and the installation of 2 roof lights and a dormer window. The mortgage was paid off last year. Who gives a fuck? Yay! Screw the pores. What happened? It's Taco Tuesday, everybody. If you having tacos today, you should. If not, I don't understand what you're doing. I don't even know what this world is about if there's no tacos today. Delicious. Israel just can't help but to get into everybody's business, right? Particularly when it comes to killing people. As the Pakistani military says, UK engines powered Israeli drones used by India. So you got UK, Israel, and India in the triple whammy of fuckers. British-made engines powered Israeli drones that India launched into Pakistani airspace last week, according to reports by the Pakistani media citing the country's military. Pakistani and international media circulated a photo late last week of an intact engine taken from a drone downed by the Pakistani military. The engine has visible manufacturer markings, which reveal it was produced by UK-based company UAV Engines Limited. Middle East Eye matched a photo of an engine from an Israeli drone shot down in Pakistan with an engine model produced by a British company in Staffordshire. While the two images matched by Middle East Eye are of the same engine, Middle East Eye could not independently verify the image from Pakistan. An Indian government source confirmed to Middle East Eye last Thursday that Pakistan had shot down at least one Israeli drone launched by India. Pakistan claimed on Friday that it had shot down 77 such drones. Among other models, India used the Israeli aerospace industry's Harop suicide drone, as well as the Sky Striker suicide drone developed by Israel's largest arms manufacturer, Elbit Systems. You know those people. The Express Tribune reported on Friday that the Pakistani military confirmed some of the drones they had downed had engines manufactured by UAV Engines Limited. Middle East Eye identified the engine in the circulated photo as the AR-731, which has the highest power-to-weight ratio of any rotary engine in the world. The photo appears to match the image and specifications of the model displayed on UAV Engines Limited website. The company, located in the West Midlands village of Shenston in Staffordshire, England, is a subsidiary of Israel's Elbit Systems. An Indian government source told Middle East Eye on Thursday that some of the drones launched into Pakistan were supplied to the Indian military by the Adani Group, a multinational company founded by Indian billionaire Gautam Adani, which shares a production line with Elbit, because of course they do. Video footage widely circulated online last week shows a young Pakistani boy carrying an engine said to have been retrieved from a drone that also appears to be a UAV Engines Limited model. A UAV Engines Limited user manual produced around a decade ago says that the company supplies Israel Aerospace Industries, among other companies. More recent manuals have not provided information on which companies UAV Engines Limited supplies. Middle East Eye asked Britain's Department of Business and Trade whether it's ever licensed the sale of UAV engines to Israel or to India. The department declined to comment. Middle East Eye has also asked UAV engines limited for comment. The development comes after the UK's Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, was criticized by Labour backbench MPs last week after he suggested Britain should not be squeamish about selling arms to India. Labour MP Kim Johnson told The Independent, "I find the business secretary's comments deeply troubling. You cannot voice concern over escalating tensions in Kashmir while simultaneously suggesting we should not be squeamish about selling arms to one side of the conflict." Yeah, it's conflict of interest. And Labour MP John Trickett said Britain needs to avoid exacerbating the already dangerous situation on the subcontinent by supplying arms. Furthermore, the idea of supplying arms to one side in a conflict situation clearly runs contrary to our national interest by risking serious diplomatic consequences from the other party. On Saturday, however, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif thanked the UK, among other countries, for contributing to successful efforts to secure a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Over the last decade, India has imported military hardware worth $2.9 billion from Israel, including radars, surveillance, and combat drones and missiles. Meanwhile, the UK government is under heavy scrutiny from rights groups and campaigners over its arms exports to Israel. A report last Wednesday based on Israeli import data revealed that a wide range of UK-made military goods and arms, including F-35 fighter jet parts, have continued to be sent to Israel even after the British government suspended 30 arms export licenses in September out of, 200 and something? And this week, the Department for Business and Trade faces a high court challenge brought by Palestinian human rights group Al-Haq over Britain's supply of 35 parts to Israel. After 4 days of shelling and unprecedented aerial incursions on both sides, India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire on Saturday. The top military officials from both nuclear-armed neighbors are due to meet this week to discuss the details of the agreement. So, ceasefire for now, but, that's the thing. You get the parts come from the UK. They go into the weapons in Israel, and then Israel sends out the drones to India, which makes it very interesting that they're getting arms from Israel. So what does that make the relationship between Pakistan and Israel? Things are cooking, man. Things are cooking. You got to go to the dentist, Kate? Take care of those pearly whites? All right, sweetie. Have a wonderful day. And a lot of these fights are orchestrated too. We'll tell you more about the ceasefire here, though. As India's Modi said, fighting only paused in the wake of conflict with Pakistan. For now. So Modi said India only paused its military action against Pakistan in his first speech to the nation since a ceasefire following a fierce military confrontation last week that threatened a fifth all-out war between the nuclear-armed neighbors. Speaking on Wednesday, the ultranationalist Hindu leader said in New Delhi that his government will not make a distinction between governments that support terrorism and terrorist groups. He said India would retaliate on its own terms if there is any further terror attack on his country. The Indian military launched multiple missiles attacks targeting sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir on May 6th, claiming it had hit terrorist infrastructure. Pakistan rejected that claim. Pakistan chose to attack India rather than combat terrorism, Modi stated, asserting that his country will not tolerate nuclear blackmail. Nuclear blackmail. We will be monitoring every step of Pakistan, Modi added, saying that this is not an era of war, but this is not an era of terrorism either. Turning to the Indus Waters Treaty with Pakistan, Modi said terror and trade cannot go together. Water and blood cannot flow together. The treaty, brokered by the World Bank, has long survived multiple crises between the two rivals. However, India's recent decision to stop the flow of water signals a sharp diplomatic shift using water that Pakistan relies on for agriculture and civilian purposes as leverage. Yeah, it's kind of a dick move to threaten to turn off their water. Pakistan's finance minister said in an interview with the Reuters news agency on Monday that the Indus Waters Treaty, unilaterally suspended by India, has to be rolled back to where it was. On Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed that by helping to broker the ceasefire, his administration had prevented a nuclear conflict. Like he had anything to do with it. New Delhi has blamed Islamabad for a deadly April 22nd attack on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir in Pahalgam, during which 26 people were killed, a charge Pakistan strongly denies. According to their partial counts, the fighting since last week killed around 60 civilians on both sides. So India's and Pakistan's top military commanders were expected to revisit a recently brokered ceasefire agreement last night. The Indian Army earlier reported a calm night, as authorities said the night passed peacefully across disputed Kashmir and the international border, with no new incidents reported. A senior Indian defense official confirmed that talks originally scheduled for noon local time were pushed to later in the day. The discussions, analysts say, will likely focus on technical details to prevent future flare-ups rather than shape long-term policy. Abdul Basit, a South Asian specialist at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, said the purpose of the exchange is to establish clear lines and avoid missteps. Yeah, that would help, especially since you both have nukes. The goal is to avoid any miscalculations because right now one spark could quickly move towards a nuclear catastrophe, he told the AFP news agency. The spike in hostilities had marked the most serious confrontation between the nuclear-armed neighbors since their last declared conflict in 1999. As tensions cooled, Indian authorities reopened 32 airports on Monday that had been shut down due to fighting. Of course, civilians in Kashmir have suffered the most in the crossfire. Military leaders in both countries spent Sunday delivering pointed briefings, each asserting they had won while pledging restraint. So each one claimed victory. Trump claims victory. And who suffers? It's always the people. We have delivered the promise we made to our people, Pakistan's military spokesman, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, declared, describing the recent operation as a success on the battleground. Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb Ahmed added that Pakistan had reestablished deterrence and neutralized key threats. India's Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai insisted that his country had shown immense restraint, but warned any threat to the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and safety of our citizens will be met with decisive force. Both nations remain on high alert despite the temporary calm as the world watches for signs of lasting de-escalation or a reignition of hostilities. Yeah, it's always a crapshoot between India and Pakistan when it comes to that shit. Because I remember, like, back in the 80s, there was like, it seems like shit's repeating now, right? You have all kinds of shit happening that happened back in the 80s. It's wild, man. It's wild. I'm telling you. Meanwhile, in Turkey's pro-Kurdish parties call for rights as PKK agrees to disarm. So the Kurdistan Workers' Party, that's PKK, appears to be moving towards disarmament and dissolution following its 12th Congress earlier this week, fueling cautious optimism among pro-Kurdish parties in Turkey for a peaceful resolution to the decades-long conflict between the PKK and the Turkish state, and a renewed momentum of advancing Kurdish rights through political means. Held from May 5th to the 7th, the Congress came in response to a rare February message from jailed PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan, who urged the group to decide on laying down arms and disbanding. The call, relayed by Turkey's pro-Kurdish People's Equality and Democracy Party, the DEM party, revived hope for ending a conflict that has claimed more than 40,000 lives since the 1980s. In recent months, the DEM party had taken the lead in efforts to mediate between Ankara and the PKK. This included meetings with Turkish officials and attempts to communicate with Öcalan, who has been imprisoned on Imrali Island since 1999. Speaking to Rudaw on Saturday, that's the outfit that's reporting this, DEM party lawmaker Salia Idenez emphasized that concrete steps should now be taken to support the existence of the Kurdish people and language and for self-governance. Variant, what are you doing here? What are you doing here, lady? It's morning time. These are all demands of the Kurdish people, and they are also reflected in Mr. Öcalan's late February appeal to the PKK, she said. Fellow DEM party lawmaker Sinan Siftirek echoed Adeniz's sentiment, telling Rudaw that the Turkish state must act on Kurdish identity. I couldn't be in the Turkish press with all these names. No way. No way. The Turkish state needs to take steps. It can no longer say, I cannot take steps on the Kurdish issue because of the PKK weapons. It should go ahead and take steps, Siftirek stressed. It called for Kurdish to be recognized as an official and educational language, for the Kurdish question to be addressed in Parliament, and for Kurdish identity to be acknowledged in the Constitution. A statement from the PKK Congress Committee on Friday reported that the Congress was held simultaneously in two separate locations with delegates representing all operational areas, in indirect reference to border regions of the Kurdish region near Turkey and Iran, where the PKK is said to be headquartered. The statement added that the PKK made the decision to disarm and disband, and that the results will be shared with the public very soon. It further urged for the physical freedom of Öcalan, who had been jailed at Turkey's İmralı prison since 1999. Turkey's Socialist Party of Kurdistan, the PSK, on Saturday welcomed the PKK's anticipated disarmament, saying it could foster a more favorable climate for Kurds across the region, including the Kurdistan Regional and northeast Syria. That's Rojava. However, the PSK's General President Bayram Boziel told Rudaw on Saturday that the disarmament alone would not guarantee Kurdish rights, and that the Turkish state did not pledge that if the PKK lays down its arms, it will grant Kurdish rights. That's not how politics works. Boziel stressed that real progress requires persistent political struggle and is also influenced by broader external dynamics. I mean, you got to keep your nose to the grindstone. Denver, what's up? I see you over there on the rock fence. Denver was on Black Bear News a couple of days ago, last week. Fun. Love you, Denver. You're a good man. You're a good man. Keep on keeping on, brother. What else we got in this shit show? Oh, we got to get to the Israeli fuckery. So, as always, there's fuckery in Israel, and here are the numbers to prove it. As Israeli strikes kill 29 in Gaza over 24 hours, and amid starvation blockade. On top of all the fuckery. So Gaza's health ministry said Monday that Israeli attacks killed 29 Palestinians and wounded 94 as Israel has continued its strikes amid a total blockade that's been imposed for more than 70 days. The health ministry said that another 4 bodies of Palestinians killed by previous Israeli attacks were recovered from the rubble. There are still a number of victims under the rubble and on the streets, and ambulance and civil defense crews cannot reach them, the ministry wrote on Telegram. Israeli attacks included overnight strikes on a school, sheltering forcibly displaced Palestinians in Jabalia, I think that's how you say it, Jabalia. Northern Gaza, a medical source told Turkey's Anadolu agency that at least 16 people, including women and children, were killed in the attack. The Israeli military briefly paused attacks on Gaza on Monday during the release of Eaton Alexander, a New Jersey-born IDF soldier who was freed as part of a deal between the U.S. and Hamas. The Israeli military only briefly limited its activity for a few hours in Gaza before resuming strikes, according to the Times of Israel. Also on Monday, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC, a famine watchdog, warned that famine was imminent in Gaza if Israel didn't lift its blockade on aid and all other goods, which has been imposed since March 2nd. The entire population is facing high levels of acute food insecurity, with 500,000 people, 1 in 5, facing starvation, the IPC said. And the health ministry said that since Israel resumed its war on March 18th, at least 2,749 Palestinians have been killed, 7,607 were injured. The numbers account for dead and wounded, Palestinians brought to hospitals and morgues. The unofficial death toll overall close to 53,000 now, and the number of wounded around 120,000. Like I said, unofficial numbers because there's still a lot of people missing in Israel. So Israel to take full control of land registry in the West Bank's Area C, cementing annexation, illegal annexation. Israel cabinet has for the first time voted to take sole responsibility for land registration in Area C of the occupied West Bank, a decision that has been described as effective Israeli annexation of the majority of Palestinian land. Under the 1995 Oslo Agreement, the West Bank was divided into 3 areas, with the Palestinian Authority exerting limited control of areas A and B, while Israel took full control of Area C. The latter area forms 60% of total land in the territory. On Sunday, the Israeli cabinet agreed that in Area C, Israel would now make all decisions about land, and any Palestinian efforts to recognize land using its own land registry would be legally void. According to Israeli media, authorities decided to move from a view of all territory is forbidden except for what is permitted to all territory is permitted except for what is prohibited. Israel Katz, Israel's defense minister, said the move would lead to the strengthening, consolidation, and expansion of Jewish settlements in the West Bank. Katz and Bezalel Smotrich, the far-right Israeli finance minister, have spearheaded the vote. Under international law, the entire territory covering areas A, B, and C is Palestinian land, and all Israeli settlements on them are illegal. The vast majority of Israel's 700,000 settlers live illegally in Area C. Ayad Jaffrey, an activist from Sinjil, a village which mostly falls in Area C, said the decision would have a grave impact on Palestinian property rights. They are effectively talking about annexation and control of the West Bank, he told Middle East Eye. We will return to dealing directly with the occupation regarding these lands. There you go. Jaffrey said that the new policy would open the way for Israeli settler groups to seize land without any oversight or accountability, kind of like what they've been doing. Even before this policy came into effect, life was already a living hell for Palestinians in Area C. Today, an employee from Sinjil rents a house inside Ramallah City in Area A so he doesn't miss work. In all areas, there are barriers, a wall, and strangulation, said Jaffrey. Even ambulances are restricted, and the press is also restricted. There's a complete strangulation of everything Palestinian. Under the Oslo Accords, it was agreed that all 3 areas were to come under full Palestinian control by 2000. Of course, that did not occur, and since then, Israel has increasingly displaced Palestinians and moved Israeli settlers into occupied lands. For years, Israeli authorities and settler groups have treated Area C as being under Israel's permanent control. Israeli forces have uprooted tens of thousands of trees planted by Palestinians, confiscated Palestinian construction equipment, and demolished homes and structures. Jaffrey used the example of Al-Mugayir, a village mostly in Area C. While the village is spread across about 40,000 dunams, that's close to 10,000 acres of land, its Palestinian residents only own 1,200 of the dunams. In Deir Dibwan, meanwhile, just 2,000 dunams of 70,000 are Palestinian-owned. The occupation classified the rest of the lands as C, said Jaffrey. Yesh Din, an Israeli organization that campaigns for human rights in occupied Palestine, told Middle East Eye that the cabinet decision was a dangerous step towards realizing the messianic vision of the annexationist government and constitutes a blatant violation of international law. Under international humanitarian law, an occupying power cannot make permanent changes to occupied territory, including annexation, building settlements, and permanent structures, or confiscating property. Israel has therefore breached international law in the West Bank for decades. This decision paves the way for the regularization of ownership over hundreds of thousands of dunams of land in the West Bank, a spokesperson for Yesh Din said. Its implementation is expected to harm the human rights of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who may lose their rights to their land. In response to Israel's de facto annexation of Area C, the Palestinian Authority in 2009 formulated the Fayed Plan, named after former Prime Minister Salam Fayyad. It was aimed at strengthening institutions in an attempt to build a Palestinian state from the bottom up. As part of that, efforts were made to register Palestinian ownership of land in Area C. The PA established a dedicated ministry whose job included overseeing land mapping, documentation, and handling land registrations in Area C. Some of the documents date to the era of Ottoman rule in Palestine, as well as Jordan's control over the West Bank between 1948 and 1967. Under the new Israeli policy, such documents will no longer be allowed to be used in Israeli legal and administrative processes. The directive goes further. PA staff will be blocked from accessing Area C, while the European Union and other international actors who have supported the construction of Palestinian schools and buildings in Area C will be blocked from providing any further aid or assistance. Major international institutions, the UN, the EU, Palestinian ministries, and ministers come to take pictures and express sympathy, said Japri. But on the ground, the Palestinian people are left alone to confront the tyranny of colonialism and organized state terrorism. No one stands with them. In spite of the lack of international help, Jaffrey said local activists and municipalities would come together to discuss the new decision. We will work to launch a popular movement against the issue. And that's the thing, it's this ethnic cleansing that's going on there, and they're trying to get rid of them. They're trying to get them out, but they'll exterminate them if they have to. So what else is going on there? But the pressure on Israel is starting to kind of work. Like we said, I don't know the game Trump is playing with Netanyahu by, giving him a cold shoulder or whatever. But there's always some fuckery afoot, and it's not what it appears to be. So never take anything for face value, because it's always just bullshit. Meanwhile, the world's largest wealth fund divests from Israeli energy company. Norway's sovereign wealth fund has decided to divest from Israel's Paz Retail and Energy because it owns and operates infrastructure supplying fuel to Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. It marks the second divestment after the fund's ethics watchdog, the Council on Ethics, adopted a tougher interpretation of ethics standards for businesses in August that aid Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The fund, the world's largest, owns 1.5% of listed shares across 9,000 companies globally. Worth $1.8 trillion, the Norwegian fund has been an international leader in the environmental, social, and governance ESG investment field. By operating infrastructure for the supply of fuel to the Israeli settlements on the West Bank, Paz is contributing to their perpetuation, the Council on Ethics said in its recommendation to divest. The settlements have been established in violation of international law, and their perpetuation constitutes an ongoing violation itself. It comes after a similar decision was made in December to sell all shares in Israel's largest telecoms group, Bezek, over its involvement in the occupied territories. Norwegian Deputy Foreign Minister Andreas Modsfeldt Kravik has denounced Israel's ongoing siege on Gaza as unconscionable and deeply illegal. Norway is among 147 states that have recognized Palestinian statehood. In April, a year after Norway's recognition, Kravik announced the formal establishment of diplomatic relations with Palestine with the appointment of Palestinian Ambassador Marie Antoinette Sedin. Really? Marie Antoinette? In addition to initiating the International Court of Justice's case on Israel's humanitarian obligations under international law, Norway is leading an international coalition for the two-state solution. Yeah, good luck there. Along with Saudi Arabia and the European Union, Kravik told Middle East Eye. A UN conference on Palestinian statehood is scheduled to be held in New York from June 2nd through the 4th, so that's coming up pretty soon, based on a UN General Assembly resolution passed in December in support of the two-state solution. So divesting, that's what we always say. You got to hit them where it hurts, and that's usually in the wallet. Meanwhile, BB says the ethnic cleansing of Gaza is inevitable. This is Dave DeCamp over there at antiwar.com. Make sure you're checking them out for good independent news. The Libertarian Institute, very good too. A lot of the same characters. Israeli Prime Minister Bibi said on Sunday that the forced removal of Palestinians from Gaza was inevitable. We are destroying more and more homes, and Gazans have nowhere to return to. The only inevitable outcome will be the wish of Gazans to immigrate outside of the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu said at the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, according to the Jerusalem Post, yeah, you get rid of your homes. I guess that's how it works. Israeli officials have made clear that the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian population of Gaza is their ultimate goal, but it remains unclear where the Palestinians would go. Netanyahu told the committee that the main problem preventing emigration is the lack of countries willing to take in the Palestinians. Israel has maintained a total blockade on Gaza since March 2nd and has developed plans to start bringing in aid using private U.S. security contractors to use food to lure starving Palestinians into a tiny part of... what are they going to, hold out a sandwich? Here, come here, come on. The fuck? Netanyahu said that the aid would be conditional on the Palestinians not returning to where they came from. Netanyahu also said Israel was currently not planning to establish Jewish settlements in Gaza at the moment because Trump is interested in having the U.S. take over the territory. Wow. Limor Son Malek, an Israeli MK and member of the Jewish Power Party, which is an awesome power. The Jewish Power Party is an awesome party to go to. They give you glow sticks and pacifiers. It's fucking awesome. It suggested American Jews could move to Gaza. Bring the Jews from the United States. This way we'll hit two birds with one stone. Probably shouldn't be talking about hitting people in that respect. And finally, in our news block, Iraq probes brutality in prisons after leaked TikTok videos of inmate abuse. So we head over to Iraq. That one of the countries that the United States used to maintain and run. Good job there. You know what happened in Iraq, right? They got rid of everybody. They got rid of the army. They got rid of all these the administrative people and stuff, and they thought they could run it. And nope. The Iraqi government has launched an investigation into alleged abuse at a Baghdad prison. These Baghdad prisons are notorious, folks. After leaked footage emerged online showing inmates being beaten, humiliated, and, according to activists, sexually assaulted by fellow detainees. So basically what they learned from the Americans when Bushy was president. While the New Arab could not verify the footage, Iraq's Justice Ministry spokesperson Ahmed Al-Luaibi confirmed the incidents took place, telling state media that the videos, which surfaced on social platforms, were mostly old, but did not specify when they were filmed. Al-Luaibi added that the ministry had formed a committee to investigate the matter and would pursue legal action to deter further violations in the prison system. The videos, reportedly recorded inside Taji Central Prison in Baghdad, appears to show prisoners from the capital assaulting fellow inmates from Najaf province. Activists allege the abuse included sexual violence, beatings with sharp objects, and sectarian insults. Some of the inmates shown in the footage appeared to be using mobile phones and posting content to social media platforms, including TikTok, raising concerns about security breaches and oversight failures inside Iraqi prisons. Don't want the abuse to get out, right? Remember the guy, the thing, he had the arms up, that famous picture, Abu Ghraib? The leaks have triggered widespread anger among the public and renewed criticism of Iraq's prison conditions, which rights groups have long described as overcrowded, poorly supervised, and rife with abuse. Justice Minister Khalid Shwani confirmed he dismissed the director of Taji Prison in January, around the time the abuses are believed to have taken place. What's up, Choosy? Good to see you, bud. Militias control many Iraqi prisons, said a civil society activist who asked not to be named. The strong abuse the weak with impunity. Even some prison officers fear intervening, knowing the consequences outside the prison walls. Journalists and activists have described a climate of impunity and a lack of accountability. Inmates buy drugs from staff, and others are bought and sold for systematic rape. Iraqi journalist Othman al-Mukhtar wrote on the tweeters, "Some prisoners must pay for medicine, sunlight, or access to the Quran. If they don't pay, they're punished." In Parliament, MP Mukhtar al-Musawi told local Iraqi media that the clips revealed a serious failure in prison management. He questioned how inmates had gained access to mobile phones and warned that some may be using them to coordinate with outside networks, including criminal and militant groups. The inspection procedures are clearly insufficient, he said. This level of internal collapse is a threat to national security. National security. There it is. You can't be showing people this shit that's really happening in our prisons. Motherfucker, what are you doing? Hempcar, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Former MP and Judge Wael Abdul Latif told Al Rashid TV that Iraqi prisons were in a state of collapse. The Justice Ministry oversees food and services, but internal security falls under the Interior and Defense Ministries, he said. Sexual assaults, drug trafficking, and mobile phone circulation are all criminal acts under Iraqi law, yet they are rampant. A report by the Justice Network for Prisoners in Iraq published in January found that more than 80% of the country's prisons and detention centers are unfit for human habitation. Wow. The report cited severe overcrowding, lack of medical care, and systemic mismanagement. But they're an ally. They're an ally of the United States. Don't forget that. Earlier this month, Justice Minister Shwani told the AP that Iraq's 31 prisons are holding approximately 65,000 inmates, double their intended capacity. When we took office, overcrowding stood at 300%. After 2 years of reform, we've reduced it to 200%. Our goal is to bring that down to 100% by next year, in line with international standards. He said thousands more detainees remain in the custody of security forces awaiting transfer to the prison system once space is available. 4 new prisons are under construction, while 2 have recently opened and 6 others have been expanded. That's what you need, more prisons. Last week, 2 inmates escaped from the Hila Central Prison south of Baghdad in a separate incident that has raised further concerns about prison security in Iraq. The scandal comes amid growing public anger over broader allegations of abuse by Iraqi law enforcement. Last month, the death of engineer Bashir Khalid ignited a fierce debate over police brutality, triggering protests and demands for urgent reform. Yeah, so just remember, Iraq is an ally of the United States. That means that they were trained by the United States. So it's finding out that these prisons in Iraq are horrible. And then you look at the prisons in America, probably quite similar. All right, so that's news, but we got more to come here, of course, as fuckery is always afoot, particularly when it comes to propaganda. And well, guess what? Israel killed another journalist. I know, shocking. I'm sure.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these exact things are true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So Israel kills Palestinian journalist in new hospital bombing. An Israeli drone strike yesterday, I believe, or this morning, killed Palestinian journalist Hassan Asli while he was receiving treatment in the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. Died in a hospital. Drone strike. Local media described Tuesday's attack as a deliberate assassination, noting that Asli was struck while being treated in the hospital's burn unit. The Israeli army claimed that it targeted a Hamas command and control center inside the hospital, an allegation Israel repeatedly uses when targeting medical facilities. Hamas, Hamas, everything's Hamas, Hamas. Asli was a prominent field reporter and director of the Alam 24 news agency. He had been recovering from injuries sustained in a previous Israeli airstrike on April 10th that targeted a media tent near the same hospital. The strike appeared to strike Asli directly, hitting his mobile phone. Though he survived, the attack killed 2 other journalists and wounded several others. In May last year, the Israeli army also attempted to kill him, targeting his home in Khan Yunis with a missile strike. Asli previously worked as a photojournalist for multiple foreign media outlets, including CNN and AP. He became well known after publishing photos documenting the Hamas attack on Israeli military bases and settlements on October 7, 2023. After the attack on the tent sheltering journalists that injured Asli on April 10th, Israeli army spokesperson Avichai Adrei claimed that Asli was a member of Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade of the Qassam brigades and alleged he had participated in the group's October 7th attacks. Hamas released a statement in the wake of his killing saying Israeli enemy forces committed a cowardly assassination crime against the journalist. Sorry, nose itchy today. The assassination of Asli is a flagrant violation of all international and humanitarian laws and reflects the occupation's moral and media bankruptcy, the statement from the Palestinian resistance movement added. Hamas noted that 215 Palestinian journalists have now been killed since the start of the war on Gaza. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP, also mourned Asli's death, stating that this cowardly war crime confirms once again that his enemy does not hesitate to target free speech, just as it targets stones and people. At least 46 people have been killed and 73 wounded in Gaza over the past 24 hours, that we told you, according to the health ministry. And there are the numbers for the rest of the war there. Meanwhile, Israeli troops killed civilian during Hamas attack and covered it up. We have told you about this before. But this is somebody else. So the Israeli army killed an Israeli civilian, Tom Godo, on October 8th, 2023, while he was hiding in the safe room of his home with his wife and 3 daughters and covered up the incident, Channel 13 revealed on Sunday. An Israeli spokesperson confirmed the report, saying that the IDF determined that Tom Godo was apparently killed by IDF gunfire directed at the door of the safe room. Godo's widow, Limor Havdallah, described to Channel 13 the events that led to her husband's death. At 6:30 a.m. on October 7th, the Godo family rushed to their safe room in the kibbutz of Kisafim, near the Gaza border, following the launch of the Hamas-led attacks on Israel. The army reached their home at only 4:20 p.m., Havdallah said. When they left, the soldiers promised that more help was on the way and that the family would be evacuated by the army. During the day, the army safely evacuated many of the kibbutz's residents, but nobody came to rescue Godo's family, his wife said. Then during the night, Israeli forces arrived and fought against Hamas combatants at 7:30 a.m. on Sunday, October the 8th, while the Godos were still confined in the safe room. They heard a knock on the door and someone requesting to open it. Godo went to the door and asked who was there. In response, shots were fired at the safe room. Havdallah escaped with her 3 daughters through the window of the safe room and ran through the kibbutz until they met an army unit. I'm shocked by what the investigation revealed, Abdallah told Channel 13. It turned out that those who killed Tom were IDF soldiers. For a reason that was not explained to me, the soldiers decided that there was a terrorist in the safe room. According to the military debriefing presented to Godot's wife, Israeli soldiers heard voices in Arabic coming from the family safe room. Abdallah said she was told that the soldiers heard a girl scream, and then the force decided that there was a hostage situation inside the safe room. The killing of Godot is not the only case in which Israeli civilians and soldiers have been killed by Israeli military fire since October 7th. Haaretz revealed last year that during the attack, when Hamas captured dozens of Israelis, the army was instructed to shoot any suspicious target moving across the border with Gaza. Not a single vehicle can return to Gaza, the army ordered. The army order read in accordance with the Hannibal Directive, a notorious Israeli military protocol you all know about. That's been implemented since the mid-1980s to prevent the abduction of Israeli soldiers at any cost. One of the most prominent incidents on October 7th took place in the Kfar Aza kibbutz, where 13 Israeli captives held by Hamas fighters were killed. An army force under the command of Barak Hiram, who has since been promoted to commander of the Gaza division, fired 2 shells at the house where the hostages were held. The findings of the military investigation did not, however, unequivocally determine that the civilians were killed because of the shelling. In Godot's case, the army refused to hand over the file to the Military Police Criminal Investigation Division, the army unit responsible for investigating crimes committed by soldiers. How can I live in a country where the body that is entrusted with my security doesn't want to check itself properly, said Abdallah. She is asking for a comprehensive investigation into the military's handling of the incident, not only the shooting toward what the IDF identified as hostages, but also the cover-up of the information for a year and a half. According to Channel 13, the soldiers who killed Godot knew after they entered the safe room that they had killed an Israeli civilian, but the information was not revealed to his family until last month. According to Abdallah, the delay in providing information doubles the sense of failure and disregard for human life. It does not relate to my world of values. When you shoot at the door, you heard there's a girl behind it, and you hide that an innocent civilian was killed, she said. If you find out that you killed by mistake, you go and say, come and interrogate me. I want to be held accountable for it. Well, that's somebody with a conscience. While the mother and her children have begun to reintegrate into a new kibbutz in the Bayet Sheyan Valley in the northwest of the country, they are now struggling to come to terms with the discovery that those who killed Tom and threatened their safety were soldiers. That's a lesson we can all learn. Last week, Israeli media revealed that army and government officials are fully aware that military action in the war on Gaza has led to the killing of Israeli hostages. As a result, some hostages' families have asked the government to refrain from implementing the so-called Gideon's Chariots operation, a new plan for expanded military offensive aiming to occupy the whole of Gaza and expel all its Palestinian residents to a small area in the south. Yeah. So I had to put this under the propaganda watch. So, you know, Palestine has a new vice president, and this is the Palestinian Authority, right? This is the government. This is not Hamas, right? Just to let you know, Hamas is a separate thing. We're talking about the government here, okay? So this guy, he's so precious. Palestinian vice president says peaceful resistance is the path to statehood and urges Hamas to disarm. Game.film, what's going on, my friend? Good to see you, buddy. God damn, Choosy. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. You okay there, bud? You hadn't typed in a while? You holy shit. The best path to achieving a Palestinian state is through peaceful resistance, not armed struggle, Palestinian Authority Vice President Hussein al-Sheikh told Al Arabiya on Sunday, urging Hamas to lay down its arms. Come on, guys. You know peace is the one. I'm choosing. I don't know why you putting on. I ain't reading none of that shit. it would take me the 2.5 hours to do this show to probably read your texts that are on there. So enjoy your typing. I'm sure somebody will read it. In an interview, al-Sheikh noted that internal divisions have politicized the issue of weapons. The Palestinian Authority is in contact with Hamas, and we are currently having a dialogue with the movement, al-Sheikh said, referring to the militant group that's currently at war with Israel in the Gaza Strip. You know they are. Hamas should let go of its arms and agree to a single authority, he added. Last month, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas appointed al-Sheikh, a close aide, as the first ever vice president of the PLO. Founded in 1964, the PLO is empowered to negotiate and sign international treaties on behalf of the Palestinian people, while the Palestinian Authority is responsible for governance in parts of the Palestinian territories. The PLO is an umbrella organization comprising several Palestinian factions, but not the militant group Hamas and Islamic Jihad, who are currently at war with Israeli forces in Gaza. Al-Sheikh is a veteran leader of Abbas's Fatah movement, which dominates the PA and is considered close to the president. Hamas is part of the people and cannot be eliminated from the political life, but Hamas has to change its policies to become part of our political system, newly appointed VP said. As for the future of Gaza, al-Sheikh said that the U.S. was the only side capable of forcing Israel to stop the war in Gaza, while expressing hope that Hamas would also take action that would lead to stopping the war. Al-Sheikh, who met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman last week, hailed the Saudi position towards the Palestinian plight. He said that MBS affirmed his support to the Palestinian people until they achieve their rights. Yes. So this guy is obviously bought and paid for. Come on, guys, drop your weapons. It ain't happening. Meanwhile, the Israeli army is becoming drained, even with the help from the United States. U.S. students enter 7th day of hunger strike for Gaza. This is at Cal State. More than 30 Cal State University students are on a hunger strike to protest against Israel's blockade of food and water going into Gaza, which has placed the enclave's population at critical risk of famine. In a video released on Sunday, the students said that the hunger strike was growing across campuses. It's day 7 of the CSU hunger strike for Gaza. We remain steadfast in our struggle for a free Palestine. This has grown to other campuses across California and the nation. We call on every student to use their voice, their body, their collective power to make this genocide inescapable for our administrations. The students are also calling for CSU to divest from companies that provide weapons and surveillance technology to Israel, and said they had committed to the hunger strike after calls from students at Palestinian universities. The students, who are from CSU Long Beach, Sacramento State, San Francisco State, and San Jose State, began the hunger strike on May 5th. They are urging CSU to follow in the footsteps of San Francisco State University, which divested last year from weapons manufacturers Lockheed Martin and Leonardo, data analysis company Palantir, and construction company Caterpillar, following a student Gaza solidarity encampment last spring. They said that students at UCLA, Stanford, and Yale universities were also participating in the hunger strike. The students have been drinking water with electrolytes and having their vitals tested twice a day. In a statement released on the day they commenced the hunger strike, Students for Justice in Palestine said, "We, students from 4 universities across CSU system, Long Beach, San Jose State, and Sacramento, will begin a united hunger strike in solidarity with the 2 million Palestinians at risk of starvation in Gaza." The students said that the hunger strike was indefinite and demanded CSU-wide divestment, including demands that San Jose State University, Long Beach State University, and the Cal State University system adopt the San Francisco State University Human Rights Investment Policy Screening. They want universities to divest from companies that supply weapons, military and surveillance technology, infrastructure, or conduct activity that violates human rights as defined by international law, including companies like Lockheed, Caterpillar, Palantir, and Leonardo. They are also demanding that the universities end all ties to Israeli institutions within study abroad programs and lift any policies that place restrictive and repressive measures on freedom of speech and protests on university grounds. Students cited CSU's Long Beach holdings in defense company Northrop Grumman as an example. CSU holdings in Northrop Grumman were $128,605 last June, down from over $481,000 of its assets in 2020 when it had investments in both Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. In 2021, the university sold its Raytheon stocks, according to the Long Beach Watchdog. Students have said that hunger strikes have deep roots in Palestine, Ireland, India, South Africa, and the U.S. In a post on social media, they said that Palestinian prisoners have been at the front of mass hunger strikes demanding their release and Palestinian liberation. The hunger strikes commenced after Israel's aid blockade entered its third month despite international condemnation, as well as Israel's announcement that they would intensify its attacks on Gaza. Organizers have been holding educational workshops during the strike. Amy Bentley Smith, CSU's Director of Media Relations and Public Affairs, told the Middle East Eye in a statement that they would not be altering its investment policies as a result of student hunger strikes. While the CSU and its 23 universities honor the right to protest and the diverse convictions expressed across our campuses, the CSU will not be altering its investment policies. We will continue to uphold the values of free inquiry, peaceful protest, and academic freedom while keeping student health, safety, and our mission at the forefront of all we do. Yeah. They said, keep protesting. We don't care. We're not gonna stop funding our Zionist masters. That's the thing. Wait, what happened? Why is this like this? Let's do that. There we go. So meanwhile, back in Israel, the Knesset debate reveals not everyone thinks starving Gazan children is a bad thing. Israel's Knesset held a first-of-its-kind discussion on the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. During a meeting last Thursday, Dr. Sharon Shaul from Natan, an Israeli-based organization that provides humanitarian aid around the world, made a seemingly trivial remark. I think that even everyone sitting around this table doesn't want a suffering child to be unable to receive painkillers or minimal medical treatment. Little did she know. Israeli lawmaker Amit Halevi of the Likud party angrily interrupted her. I'm not sure you're speaking for us when you say we want to treat every child and every woman. I hope you don't stand behind that statement either. When fighting a group like this, the distinctions that exist in a normal world don't exist. Shaw didn't back down. I hope that you too don't want a 4-year-old whose arm has been amputated to go without painkillers. I hope you have the empathy too, lawmaker Limor Son Har Malek. Religious Zionism couldn't hold back. The only treatment needed here is for you, she said, pointing at Shaw. Another participant remarked, you are the sickest doctor I've ever seen. Wow. The discussion was convened by MK Moshe Terpaz of the Yesh Atid as part of a subcommittee of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee dealing with public diplomacy and foreign relations. The issue at hand was not hunger in and of itself, but the diplomatic and public relations damage it might cause. To my understanding, the state of Israel does not intend to use hunger as a tool. I believe that even if there are no uninvolved civilians in the Jewish morality I know, there is no permission to starve non-combatants, and I am under the impression that the Israeli government is not heading toward starving Gaza, Terpaz said after the meeting. But those who set the tone in the discussion were Halevi and Son Har Malek. Contrary to Dr. Shaul's hope, many around the table indeed thought that the starvation and torment of Gazan children is not only legitimate, but even desirable. Shifra Tzur Arya, who identified herself as a resident of the Gaza envelope, scolded the MKs for even holding the discussion. "Who are you pitying?" she shouted, repeating the false claim about the disembowelment of pregnant women during the October 7th attack as reason why Gazans don't deserve sympathy. Another participant was Rochelle Tweedo, a founder of TZOV-9, an organization that worked to blockade trucks during the first year of the war and whose activities sometimes led to the assault of drivers and the destruction of humanitarian supplies. Tweedo attributed the first hostage deal to TZOV-9's actions, even though their activity began 2 months after that deal in 2023 and ended months before the second release deal in early 2025. "We stood our ground and succeeded," she said. "Every day we blocked trucks, and thanks to this action, we got the first wave and hostages returned. I'm not a sadist, but I know my enemy. In the end, there was a siege here, and it helped return hostages. It proved successful. I don't care about international law or the UN. This is the only serious bargaining chip that works." Wow. TZOV-9 is considered an extremist group that was sanctioned by the Biden administration and the European Union. Facebook removed its page, but in yesterday's discussion, TZOV-9 was the heart of the consensus. Even Near Oz native Yitzhar Lifshitz, son of Oded Lifshitz, of the Lifshitz, who was kidnapped and murdered, and Yocheved, who was kidnapped and later released, praised Tweedo. "I respect you because at least you did something, and they, the politicians, only talk." Lifshitz argued that although there are almost no innocents in Gaza, any moral person can understand that starving children is not something we can be proud of. There's a line we need to make sure we don't cross. Well, you crosses several lines already. "Seeing mothers with dead children in their arms, is that what will bring back our hostages? Our strength also lies in the justice of our path." For that, he was harshly scolded by son Malek. "It's terrible that you even bring that up. It's terrible, awful, and horrific that you're talking about starvation when our children were butchered so cruelly. I wouldn't expect you to bring that up." Even if somebody killed my kids, I wouldn't want to kill that person's kids. That's many levels of fucked up. There were also those at the discussion who tried to speak about the threat of hunger and the suffering of Gazan children. Arnon Kuri Yafin, a statistician and economist who built a model to calculate food quantities in Gaza, tried to explain the situation for the MKs. His model is based on calculating the amount of food brought into Gaza according to IDF data and the calories that can be derived from it. According to his model, on average, there's enough food in Gaza, but he has little doubt that the weakest and poorest populations in the Strip are suffering from severe malnutrition. According to the model, we are already at a point where tens of thousands have no food at all or have less than 300 calories a day. Even if we look at the average, there may not be a caloric deficiency, but there is a deficiency in certain nutrients. Arnon explained. He too was rebuked by M.K. Halevi, who didn't need any model or complex calculations to declare, "This is no hungry person. There is no hungry person in Gaza, not even a single child. It's a shame you are amplifying that lie. No one is lacking anything." This is in their government. In the closed session that followed, the IDF presented data similar to Kuri Yafin's. The Army claims there is still enough food in the Strip if distributed equally, but even the IDF admits that pockets of hunger may have developed. Pockets of hunger. Families, children, and needy individuals unable to secure the minimum nutritional intake. Somebody should write down what Choozy's writing, because Jesus, that'd make a hell of a book. I don't think anyone in this room imagines that in 15 years we'll look back and say, "It was great that we starved them. What a smart strategy," said Ron Yaman from the political headquarters of the left-wing organization Coalitions. Son Marhamalek once again couldn't restrain herself. "No one is starving anyone. Stop echoing Hamas lies." Yaman did not give in. "The fate of a child who hasn't eaten, who lost their home and family, is sealed. Hunger leads to despair, and despair leads to extremism." Yeah, I mean, that's how it works. You get desperate enough. I'm here to warn you, if our stomachs don't ache when we starve children, the headache will follow us for years. The experience of hunger gets imprinted on the body and soul, and it will stay with us for many years to come. Your heart is broken, Tazura Ari shouted at her. And these are people that have been steeped in propaganda for decades and decades and decades. Pittsburgh Dudes Fit 87, good to see you. Too bad pepperoni is not halal. Otherwise, Jordan could increase its profit margins on its airdrops into Gaza. What else we got here? Any more? Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we got a few more. Looks like we're going to get to the top of the hour, I imagine. So, the BBC, you know them. Big Black Cock. No, I'm talking about the British Broadcasting Company or Corporation, whatever it's called. Prominent health workers accuse BBC of censorship for withholding film on Gaza medics. Prominent health workers have written to the BBC expressing profound outrage over its decision to delay the broadcast of a new film about doctors working in Gaza, which they say is censorship by omission. The documentary Gaza, Medics Under Fire, was ready to broadcast in February, but was pulled because of a scandal that erupted over another BBC documentary on children in Gaza entitled How to Survive a War Zone. The BBC launched a review into the film after the Israeli embassy in London, and British ministers criticized it over revelations that its 13-year-old narrator, Abdullah al-Yazuri's father, is a technocrat in Gaza's Hamas-administered government. Britain's public broadcaster said it will broadcast Gaza Medics Under Fire after the review into the earlier documentary has been concluded, although it is not clear when that will be. The new film has been signed off by the broadcaster's lawyers, and the BBC reportedly abandoned an earlier plan to screen the film despite the review. Amira Nimirawi, the CEO of Health Workers for Palestine, Dr. Omar Abdel Manan, its founder and president, and Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, the rector of Glasgow University who worked in Gaza's hospitals in 2023, were among healthcare workers who signed an open letter to the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, on Thursday. This is not a neutral editorial choice, they wrote. The BBC's refusal to air this film constitutes censorship by omission, and it's no less dangerous than overt propaganda. By denying the public access to this crucial testimony, the BBC is actively shielding war crimes from scrutiny and undermining its own stated commitment to impartiality, truth, and public service. Basement Films, the documentary's producer, said it was deeply disappointed at the BBC's decision, adding, "There is no moral or professional reason why a mistake in one film should repeatedly prevent the release of another film." It's true. These excuses are getting dumber and dumber. We gathered searing testimony from multiple Palestinian doctors and health workers who have survived attacks on hospitals and their homes that killed both colleagues and loved ones. We also spoke to multiple medics who have been detained and testified they had been tortured, and we made solemn undertakings that their stories would be told, and done so as soon as possible. Basement Films added, the film has been made by an experienced and multi-award-winning team, both from Basement Films and the BBC. It has been fact-checked, complied, and signed off multiple times within the BBC, as well as experts we consulted with. We are desperate for a confirmed release date in order to be able to tell the surviving doctors and medics when their stories will be told. The letter on Thursday noted that the health workers featured in the BBC film have witnessed countless colleagues being killed, have risked their lives not only to care for their patients, but to document and expose the relentless targeting by Israel of healthcare infrastructure and personnel. The spokesperson for the BBC said, "We are committed to journalism, which tells our audiences the stories of this war, including what is happening in Gaza. We're committed to journalism." That's funny. This documentary is a powerful piece of reporting, and we will broadcast it as soon as possible. We have taken an editorial decision not to do so while we have an ongoing review into a previous documentary, Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone, which still doesn't explain why that has to do with this one. This comes just over a week after the BBC aired Louis Theroux's film The Settlers, which received enormous attention and focused on Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank. Bingo. So a British father jailed in Saudi Arabia over a deleted tweet. Look at that, right? Saudi Arabia. Oh boy. A British analyst has been sentenced to 10 years in a Saudi prison for posting a tweet, the Times can reveal. Ahmed Al-Dosh, I'm not going to call him douche. The guy's in jail, for God's sakes. Ahmed Al-Dosh, a senior business analyst at the Bank of America. Oh, he works at Bank of America, so yeah. Ahmed Al-Dosh was on holiday with his pregnant wife and 3 children in the country last August when he was arrested at King Khalid Airport in Riyadh. Douche, who lives in Manchester, has been held in a maximum security prison under Saudi Arabia's strict anti-terrorism laws on charges which include criticizing the government on social media and associating with a London-based Saudi dissident. The analyst, who has a chronic thyroid condition and a back injury, was held in solitary confinement for 33 days after his arrest and was denied consular assistance and access to legal representation for more than 2 months. On Monday, a state-appointed lawyer told Douche's wife, Maher Noor, that he had been convicted of an offense at a hearing, but said that he could not tell her what the offense was. Heidi Digstal, a barrister at 33 Bedford Row Chambers, who is Douche's lawyer in Britain, said that the analyst's legal team had not seen any documentation about his charges and were unclear about what the tweet referred to and the dissident's identity. Digstal understands that the father of 4 was tried by Saudi Arabia's specialized criminal court after his arrest on August 31st. The court has previously sentenced offenders to death for social media posts. Wow. And has been described by Amnesty International as an instrument of repression. Yeah, you would think. Based on the questions asked during the interrogations, the family believes that accusations relate to a tweet Douche wrote in 2018 regarding the war in Sudan, which provided military support for Saudi Arabia in Yemen. The tweet made no mention of Saudi Arabia and was later deleted. Douche's family claimed that he was not political. Digstal said there were indications that Douche's right to due process and a fair trial were consistently violated through a solitary confinement, prolonged detention without charge, interrogations without a lawyer, and restrictions of consular access. The fact that it's still unclear what tweet forms the basis of the charge, even after conviction and even to the UK government, further demonstrates the fair trial violation, she said. The information known indicates that the charges against him, the proceedings, and his treatment are contrary to international law and human rights standards. Digstal said Douche, who was born in Sudan, had not been granted a Saudi lawyer of his choice and had found it difficult to speak to his family on the phone about the case. He's been told by prison officers that he cannot speak about the hearing or his prison conditions. That's him right there. Digstal has put in an urgent request to the Foreign Office to find out if any of its officials attended the hearing, if it knows details of the conviction and its next steps. Noor called on the Foreign Office to take all action to bring her husband home. Her requests to meet someone from the department to discuss her husband's detention have remained unanswered. I rarely speak to my husband, but in the few snatched conversations we've managed, it's clear Ahmed is struggling. He has thyroid problems, back pain, and is tormented by mental distress. He worries about his family, particularly as he was the sole breadwinner. He missed the birth of our 4th child and our 10-year wedding anniversary. How many more family milestones will he have to miss before the Foreign Office sit up and take action? The Times understands that Hamish Falconer, the Middle East minister, has raised the matter several times with his Saudi counterpart. In response to a letter from Reprieve, a civil rights group supporting Douche, to David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, a Foreign Office official, wrote that the UK government cannot interfere in another country's legal processes and must respect their systems, nor can we get British nationals out of jail. Jeed Bassiouni, head of the Middle East and North Africa Death Penalty Project at Reprieve, said that this was what happens when the UK government fails to stand up for the rights of its citizens arbitrarily detained overseas. A British man was abducted in front of his family and disappeared into a Saudi jail on charges unknown, and for 8 months the Foreign Office failed to do what was needed and seek his release. When a British national is convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison, and neither his family nor his lawyer know the Foreign Office, or nor his lawyer nor the Foreign Office know what crime he's been accused of, something has gone very badly wrong. It would be farcical if it wasn't a tragedy for this family, who have been badly let down by the UK government. The Foreign Office said, "We are supporting a British man who is detained in Saudi Arabia and are in contact with his family and the local authorities. The Saudi Arabian embassy has been approached for comment, but apparently they didn't get the comment." So two more here. Pope making our Chicago Pope, Pope on a rope, Pope sickle. He's already causing trouble. Pope Leo calls for the release of jailed journalists, notes their courage. Pope Bob, a.k.a. Leo XIV, has called for the release of journalists in prison for doing their work while affirming free speech. Leo, who was elected pontiff last Thursday after the death of Pope Francis, gave his first news conference at the Vatican on Monday, addressing some of the thousands of journalists who traveled to Rome to cover his election as the first American pontiff. He said journalists jailed for seeking and reporting the truth must be released. The church recognizes in these witnesses, I am thinking of those who report on war, even at the cost of their lives, the courage of those who defend dignity, justice, and the right of people to be informed, because only informed individuals can make free choices, he said. The suffering of these imprisoned journalists challenges the conscience of nations and the international community, calling on all of us to safeguard the precious gift of free speech and of the press. The new pope also reiterated his message of peace that he had communicated to large crowds on Sunday as well. Peace begins with each one of us in the way we look at others, listen to others, and speak about others, he told assembled journalists at the Vatican's vast Paul VI audience hall. In this sense, the way we communicate is of fundamental importance. We must say no to the war of words and images. We must reject the paradigm of war. Leo, who was active on social media before becoming Pope, cautioned against communication of all prejudice and resentment, fanaticism, and even hatred. Let us disarm words, and we will help to disarm the world, he said, urging reporters to favor a path of communication for peace. So Pope's like, yeah, let them loose, y'all. What are you doing? What's this? Part of the Order of Malta. Hey, Wesley, what's going on? Our pro sporting events going Catholic for a while. The Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's what's going to happen because of the Pope, Chicago. So you've been hearing about how there's white people are in South Africa are being discriminated against, right? So Trump, he says he welcomes 59 white South Africans as refugees to the U.S. Refugees. A group of 59 white Afrikaners from South Africa has arrived in the U.S. As part of a refugee program set up by the administration of Trump's administration to offer sanctuary from what Trump has depicted as racial discrimination against white people. In a press conference yesterday, Trump mirrored the claims of a myth popular on the far right that white people in South Africa have been subjected to systematic violence since the end of white minority rule in the country. It's a genocide he's calling this a fucking genocide. He calls this a genocide. It's a genocide that's taken place. Trump mumbled to reporters at the White House, a claim that has drawn criticism from government officials, new media, and even some Afrikaners themselves. The move comes as the Trump administration blocks nearly all refugee admissions from non-white countries and leans into rhetoric about an invasion of immigrants from poor countries. The poors are coming. And this fucking Aquaman, what's he got to say? While people fleeing widespread violence and persecution in countries such as Haiti and Afghanistan found a closed door, Al Jazeera correspondent Patty Culhane says that the Trump administration has made a priority of getting these people, white South Africans, into the U.S. and paying for them to get here. Yeah. The South African government has called Trump's claims that Afrikaners face persecution completely false, noting that they have remained among the richest and most economically privileged groups even after the end of the apartheid system that upheld white minority control of the political, economic, and military resources of the country and denied basic rights to the black South African majority. South African whites still own about 3/4 of all private land in the country and have about 20 times the wealth of the black majority, according to the international academic journal, The Review of Political Economy. But yeah, we got to get those crackers to safety. Come on, crackers. Y'all come on over now. So silly. But yeah. There's, if you're like a, there it is, Beast of, I see white people. That's the thing. You have to give them some farms in Oklahoma. Yeah, they can come on over. That's fine. Those poor, oppressed, rich white people from South Africa. However will they endure this ordeal? Anyway, that's news. That's the propaganda watch for today. Before we get out of here pretty soon, just want to remind you, Kevin's show coming up probably about an hour, I guess. Over on his regular channels there, YouTube and Rockfin, I think, Rumble too. I think he's on there. And be sure to donate to his GoFundMe that he's got going on. He lost his home during the LA fires. Kevin's a good guy. He always provides good content over there at Black Bear News. So you can help him out. The donation links for him are down below. As for ours as well, as you can see the crawl here, you can support the show that way. You can donate. Or you can join Patreon. Either way, all donations are very much appreciated. Great or small. And if you can't do it, if you could share out the links, we appreciate that too. So, all right. So finally today, before we go, we have one last story for you. And this one is about space. Because, I'd be loving me some space. And this one is, I think this is in Australia. Yeah, so this is in Australia. Let me, there it is here. So astronomy experts in Western Australia said a bright green light that illuminated the early morning sky over the state was actually one hell of a meteor. Ooh. Let's tease it.
A blazing fireball has lit up the early morning sky, caught on camera in Perth and right across WA. Experts now searching to find out if or where the meteor landed.
Oh, look, meteor.
Sky spectacle leaving WA residents stunned.
Oh, what a sight! What a sight!
The streak of light soaring overhead around 6 this morning. Early risers lucky enough to catch a glimpse. Captured on security cameras as others slept, seen across the state in Kalgoorlie.
Yeah, till it hit somebody's house.
Even spotted south in Mandurah. Rumours swirling that it could have been Russian space junk. Experts quick to clarify.
That was one hell of a meteor. That was very nice. A nice little surprise for Mother's Day.
Predictions showing the meteor was between the size of a cricket ball or a basketball.
It's going anywhere between, 16 kilometres per second up to, nearly 60 kilometres per second. So that friction builds up and it causes the outer layer to melt, and that's where you're getting to see that lovely green-orange glow.
Scientists say the meteor seems to have passed over the central wheat belt, but they're not exactly sure where it may have landed, something they'll work to figure out over the coming days.
Wow!
Amber Wilkinson, 9 News.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Unless it hits your house, then you're like, oh, well, fuck the meteors. Yeah, so I've never seen anything like that personally. I mean, I've seen shooting stars before, like during the meteor showers and stuff, but something like that looked like some, like that one that was over Russia a couple 20 years ago. But this one didn't explode like that one. That one exploded and like rattled some places, like broke some windows, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I love me some space shit till, I'm telling you, that's probably the only thing that's going to change stuff on this planet is a whole bunch of rocks fall to Earth. And then people got to deal with that instead of bullshit. I'm not pulling for, an apocalypse of such nature, but, if you think about it, we are in the apocalypse right now, because the apocalypse, it just means like, it's an unveiling, a lifting of the veil is what it means. You're starting to see all the fuckery in Israel being exposed. You're starting to see all the fuckery in our country, in the West, being exposed. And, this is a pivotal time in human history. What's going to happen next? Are the regular ass people in the world going to rise up and get rid of these people? Or are we just going to continue to be dominated by dumb, rich assholes? That's up to us. Whether we do that or not, we'll see. Kevin's show, like I said, Kevin's show is coming up probably in about an hour. Make sure you watch Black Bear News. Tomorrow night, it's been told to me that Chuck, the alien, TV's Chuck from Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, Intergalactic, is going to be on the Willie Bragg show tomorrow evening. So check your local times and temperatures in your area for that show on YouTube. And I know he's on Twitch. I know Willie's on Twitch too. So should be fun. Looking forward to that. That's tomorrow night. And then this show will be back Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. At 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, and 8 a.m. Pacific time. Other than that, check out our friends here that we're promoting. Make sure you check out their channels and the good stuff there. So trying to put out the word about our independent media friends that's doing some good stuff. So IG Corp sanctioned a guest appearance, so we're good to go. Okay, good. So you're not going to get in trouble with the bosses. Excellent. Folks, I want to appreciate, I would appreciate talking. That would be nice. I appreciate you. I love each and every one of you. I thank you for your support. Thanks for watching the show. Take care of yourselves. Make sure you're using your critical thinking skills. That's why we don't try to tell you what to think on this show. Because for one thing, you probably tell me to fuck off, but don't rely on pundits and analysts and stuff all the time. Use your critical thinking skills. You're a smart person and you can figure stuff out too for yourself. So, and don't forget, use multiple sources too. Anywho, I'm out of here. I'll see you Friday. Yes, Friday. Unless I sneak in a show somewhere in between then. I doubt it, but pretty sure that it could happen. You never know. But definitely Friday. We'll see you Friday. Be good. And tell your mom I said hi. Oh, wait. I'll do it myself. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!